How you doing?
I am doing wonderful.
Good to see you.
Hey there, Mr. Commissioner. How are you?
How are you?
You know, one day, your open be as handsome as you two.
Well, let's hope. Got a ways to go.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Talk to me, okay?
Yes. Just
Okay. Is Joe here? Hadley?
No, I haven't seen him. Is he on here for something?
Yeah, he was going to talk about Dyer's work. Maybe we ought to move.
Well, I heard you say to somebody, oh, we're gonna hold that right now, actually.
We're going to hold action item 2. Right?
Yeah, so. Did Joe have somebody else on here?
Well, he talked about Taylor Christensen. You know what, hey, Scott, you know what we could do, since this actually isn't What's that? Yeah. Didn't even look like it,
I
did it?
know, it does. We'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the Weber County Commission meeting held this day, 30th April, last day of the month, huh? It's good to have all you folks here tonight. Based on a recommendation that Commissioner Frohr made a while back, we decided we were going to take our commission meetings, when possible, and try to move them around the county a little and give people who don't have a chance to come to our commission meeting during the day the chance to come at night and talk to us and feed information to us if they want to, or just downright complain. And so you will get your opportunity this evening to go through to do this as we go through our agenda. I'm Commissioner Scott Jenkins. This is Commissioner Gage Frohr next to me. He's a homebody to you folks up here. And Commissioner Harvey, thank you. He's excused tonight. He's in
Grand Cayman.
Yeah, Grand Cayman, if you can imagine. I got an email from him a couple days ago, and he's in a. He actually wasn't in a suit,
No,
but he was on the beach. Looked pretty comfy where he was at.
Looked pretty nice.
Yeah. So our meeting will begin this night with an invocation by Laura Warburton, Pledge of Allegiance by John Prince, and then we'll go to a thought of the day by Commissioner Frohr. So Laura, if you could walk up here, or here. And they said the mic on the left is the one that works. So yes.
Where face you?
Yeah.
Our dear Father in heaven, we're grateful to be able to meet in such a beautiful place. We're grateful to have leaders, elected officials that would be so kind and considerate as to bring a meeting to us. We pray, Father, that Thou will bless them and their families for the service, the tremendous amount of time that they give to our community. Father, we pray that as we meet as a community tonight, that Thy Spirit will be with us and that we will remember to be civil and that we may work collaboratively to bring about great change and understanding in our wonderful, wonderful community. We love Thee, and we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Please repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, it's great to see this turnout in our hometown, Ogden Valley. I told the other commissioners, I said, I wouldn't be surprised if we fill that library. We're accustomed to about maybe 3 people, public, attending most of our meetings at 10 o'clock. So I really felt this was a good idea, both to do this on a quarterly basis across Weber County. So we will be doing it on a quarterly basis, and we will be doing it in the evening. And we appreciate any of your feedback after the meeting tonight to say whether this was worth your time or not. And please be kind in those remarks. So since we are in beautiful Ogden Valley, and that's home for most of us here, I thought it was appropriate to talk a little bit about the history of Ogden Valley, and past, present, and future. And I'm going to start by, you're probably wondering why Senator Jenkins and I are wearing the hats. Well, that's his hat's the senator, mine's what they call the Gandhi. In about a week and a half, we'll be celebrating the 150-year anniversary of the driving of the Golden Spike. And so if anybody really would like to have one of these hats or 2 others, have selection, we know where you can find one very easily. So don't be bashful. We have plenty available for that big celebration on the 9th and 10th in Weber County. We are expecting close to 200,000 people, if not more. So it's going to be a big party. We also have a bicentennial coming up, not immediately, but 6 years from now, 2025, there'll be a bicentennial celebrating Ogden Valley. Does anybody know when that originally took place? Well, if it's 200 years in 2025, actually May 16th, 1825, Peter Skeen Ogden and his brigade left the south part of Cache County, came across the south part of Cache County, and entered Ogden Valley that same week. He brought with him his company, and when he got into Ogden Valley, he found out there wasn't a lot of trappers here. He spent several weeks here, and he trapped over 600 beaver, and then left going out over the Trappers Loop Road. Obviously it wasn't a road back then, but he went south then into Morgan County. He named it at that point in time the New Hole, and that was Peter Skeen Ogden's contribution to Ogden Valley, coming from Cache County. A number of years later, 25 years later to be exact, Brigham Young sent a group up to see if they could discover a new route to Fort Bridger. And they spent some time up here. They couldn't actually locate an alternate route that made any sense. They went back across North Ogden Divide. 4 years later, he sent another group up, led by Charles Middleton, and they brought in a group of some families, and they actually herded some cows over here. They turned Ogden Valley into summer range for a period of about 6 years. And they used that for summer range. In about 1860, I think that's about the time or shortly thereafter that our relatives came into the country, wasn't it, Zane? About mid-1865 or 66, right through there. So he actually formed his fort and compound down on the lower valley in the South Fork, just south of where we are this evening. In 1860, they actually surveyed out, and Jefferson Hunt and his group then named and homesteaded Huntsville that we're now in. Shortly after that, in 1866, the town of Eden was formed, and then shortly after that, in 1892, Liberty. So that's the little bit of history about our valley. My descendants, Zane and I don't know if I have any of the relatives here, actually inhabited a little town by the name of, I don't know if it was a town, it was a place called Swineville. Yeah. Now don't be laughing. And we're not going to talk, they actually raised pigs. There was a railroad that stopped there, and the conductor of that rail line actually called it Swineville. It was actually where is covered by the dam now. That was the first part of my family to come in the late 1860s, and obviously when the dam came in, they sold out and relocated the other part. So I think it's appropriate to recognize.
They got drowned out.
Yeah, I hope they moved before the floods came. Wasn't this time of year. But I think it's important to recognize the history of this valley. It's very important. It has become really a place that many of us celebrate because of the quality of life we have up here, our recreation opportunities that exist here that I don't think exist anyplace else in Weber County to the extent they do here. It's important that we recognize that we need to make decisions as a county commission for the future so that we can protect what we've experienced in our lifetimes so our kids and grandkids can also experience Ogden Valley and give the opportunities through good land use planning and other issues so they do have the rights to the private property we have up here. Just like our forefathers did, they gave us the opportunity. I think we owe it to our kids and grandkids to make sure we give them the opportunity, Commissioner. That's my thoughts.
That's a great thought. Just so you know, Commissioner Ford has really represented you guys well up here. You folks up here, he's represented you well. He's served for all those years in the House down Salt Lake, and now as a commissioner, and I've been associated with him for a long time, and we went to school together. He was a little younger than us, but he's done a great job, and you should be proud to have him representing you.
Thank you. That's when all the Plain City boys would beat up on what they called us Valley boys. Or, actually, the Valley boys was too nice. They called us the Hicks from the Valley. So Rex remembers those days as well.
Well, those were good days. All right, the way we run this meeting, so you understand, we give you a chance to comment at the beginning of it. So if there's anything that's not on the agenda that you want to bring up, now would be the time to do it. And the way we run it is we give you 3 minutes or so to Mike. We ask you to introduce yourself and tell us where you're from, your address, and then you're welcome to speak to us. If you've not been given the agenda, it's actually 4 pages, so we got a lot to cover tonight, and we'll buzz right through this. And when we get into the action items, we will give you a chance to comment on those as well. But if there's anybody that would like to speak or comment right now, feel free. The mic's yours. Just come ahead, one at a time.
That's what I said up front. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. My name is Gary Haas. I live in Wolf Star. I've been a resident of the Valley since '84. Came up here to visit a friend after Vietnam in 1980. Beautiful place. That's why everybody lives here. My problem with the government of the valley is that you required 3 acres to build on. I get a personal property tax exemption for 1 acre for your personal property house, primary residence. I got a place in Liberty that is on 2 acres. I've been assessed for that extra acre as low as $5,000 up to $40,000. Doesn't do me any good. Can't sell it, barter it, you know, the routine. Gage 4 and I, about 5 years ago, introduced a law request to the state saying that if a government requests that you have more than 1 acre for primary residence, which is 3 acres in the valley, that the whole assessed value should be placed on the requirement of the government, not just 1 acre. It went through committee, failed, they didn't like it. I appealed it through our assessors, and since then they lowered the assessed value of it, but every year it's different. I mean, it depends on who you talk to at the assessor's office. We have a brand new local representative, Steve Waltrip. I talked to him about it. He basically said, well, go to the county assessor. So I talked to him, pleaded my case, and he said, well, if you can get the rest of the assessors in the state to agree with it, I'll fight for you. I'm asking you gentlemen to talk to the county assessor, and he should fight for me. I shouldn't have to go and look up other 27 state or representatives. So that's what I'm asking you to do, is try to get the state to say if the government requires you to have an X amount of property for a house, that should be the exemption. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a lady over here. Yeah.
There's 2 of us that will take up the 3 minutes. My name is Jan Fulmer. I live at 3741 Red Hawk Circle in Eden.
Elwood Powell is my name, and I'm president of the Weber Wildlife Federation.
Okay, the Weber Wildlife Federation is the owner of the gun range. We had a community meeting on March 27th. We had excellent attendance. 160 people signed in, but we had a little more than 200 who attended, and I'm very sorry none of the commissioners could be at the meeting. But one of the outcomes of that meeting, and Mr. Powell and other members of the board of the Weber Wildlife Federation were also at the meeting, and we came up with ideas and action items to try and prevent future wildfires from initiating in the gun range in the future. And what I would like to do, commissioners, Commissioner Harvey, who's not here, did request feedback on the outcome of the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Yeah, I'll make sure Commissioner Harvey gets this.
All right, and I'm not about to go through what is in there. We will be publishing most of what is in there in our local newspaper. I need to work with Shanna and Jeannie on that. But what is there is ideas that came from the community, as well as very specific actions the Weber Wildlife Federation is taking at that gun range in terms of making some changes to the landscaping, changing the rules, and I can let Mr. Powell tell you more about that. But there is one more thing I have to ask the county for some help with. And even if they really do well at the gun range and they have committed to shutting it down during high drought, windy conditions, it doesn't matter. People are going to go up that road to Avon, and it is a trash dump. There is nothing but shotgun shells all over the place, used targets. Nobody cleans that up. And if the gun range is closed during high drought conditions, that's not going to stop people from going up there and shooting. And I believe a good portion of that is Forest Service land. So if there is something the county can do to help protect that, it would be greatly appreciated. Okay, Mr. Powell?
Jan, do you have any suggestions for what the county should do?
I don't know enough about shooting to tell the county what to do. I do know it's very difficult for the sheriffs to patrol this valley because there's such a large area for them to patrol, and we don't have an unlimited number of sheriffs. So I'm at a loss. I'm certainly willing to organize a group. We can do some brainstorming to think of what can be done. But I was just up there last night, and it was a mess, again.
Yeah, we understand that. We thank you.
So, Mr. Powell, if I brought you a couple of Boy Scouts who was working on the Eagle Project, would you accept that?
Certainly. I put them to work. I got plenty of work up there to
And
do.
you've got a big dumpster up there, don't you?
I got an 8x8 dumpster, but
Okay.
there's not that much stuff that they can pick up. We cleaned it up last fall, and it's been much, much better the last 2 or 3 years as we've tried to modify the targets they're using. We just put up a bunch of wooden target bases and regular 24-inch styrofoam back target backers, and they are well used and they are quite durable.
Well, I had a couple of Boy Scouts hit me up just last week, and I told them I'd keep an eye out for a project.
Sure.
So this-
I got plenty of projects up
that's
there.
great.
That's just one.
Yeah, well, and I could turn them kids over to you probably in 6 to 8 weeks. They'd be
Okay.
ready to do
Well,
it.
let me know and
I will.
we'll put them to work.
I'll do that.
Since we had the community meeting, we've cut down over 100 great big tree trunks. They range in diameter from 3 or 6 inches to about 12 inches. And we probably got another 100 to go within the area that Captain Cooper identified for us that he'd like to have it cleaned out. I spoke with Ron Chambers this afternoon. He indicated he would likely mobilize his bulldozer in the middle of May, and there's probably at least a week's worth of bulldozer work that we will accomplish up there, trying to comply with the requirements that Captain Cooper set out for us. Build a berm on the east side, or north side of the range, and clean out all the underbrush and the remaining trees within the fire breaks that are already there established. We posted a bunch of additional signs up there, and the range will be closed on Red Flag Days. It took me several trips down to meet with Captain Cooper to get my miserable iPhone programmed so that I get notification from the Weather Service that there's inclement or bad weather. When we get the area cleaned up and we get all the trees piled up, then I talked to Commissioner Jenkins about mobilizing a county weed control truck to spray significant amounts of herbicide to kill June grass and whatever else is up there. And so far, we've purchased about $1,200 worth of herbicide to put out. And whether or not that'll cover it all, I don't know, but whatever it takes to get it covered, we'll do it.
Well, we've got the guy from the roads department here that are over the weeds, so they're listening to you.
I and Mr. Hadley have already been together in previous years to spray herbicide, so hopefully you've got the truck repaired with the big long booms and the measuring equipment so that we can cover a significant amount of acreage in a minimum amount of time.
Thank you.
And that's probably as good a summary as I can put together currently of what's going on. The big thing left to be done is bulldozer work. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a wonderful report. Thank you.
Jan, thank you for coordinating that community meeting.
Hello, I'm Jim Zalesnik. I live out in East Huntsville, out on 500 South. I have a concern, which is probably shared by many people, and that is being taxed off your property once you have been on a fixed income. And other states have had the same thing, and we do have an influx of affluent people coming into the valley, and the prices, as you know, have gone through the roof. And as long as the mill levy stays the same, the dirt our house is on is going to elevate, and the Social Security doesn't go up nearly what the tax does. And some of the longer generation people want to stay on their family ground, but they're squoze out of the valley, or they will be squoze. And I don't know exactly who would be in charge, if this is a county, since the county assessor is the one who assesses us, whether it's a county decision or whether that has to come to the Congress of the state. But I understand that California has done this in the past. It was their Prop 8. And I was told that Tennessee or Virginia also has done it, and there are probably other states where, you know, the elderly, the senior citizens are vulnerable to the influx of this. So that was my concern, and I wanted to bring it and
Yeah,
and
Jim,
share it with you.
I've dealt with this in the legislature for, I think, 12 years, out of my 12 years there. It's not an easy solution, but this is a state issue in terms of property tax is set, the property tax regulation or code is set by the state. There are obviously some ways to address it. Unfortunately, we are a for value property tax. I just noticed in the paper this morning that Weber County zip code 84317, which I think we all know where that is ranked as one of the highest median values in the state compared to some areas in Salt Lake. So we are, I guess, take the good with the bad, but that's the problem, is that based on value, we will pay more tax.
Is there anything that the county can do or the assessor can do to address that, to put an exemption or to change what is currently status quo?
That would be up to a gentleman sitting in the back of the room now, Representative Waldrop, if he so decides to deal with that. Not to point any fingers, but
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
he chose that hot seat, so.
Just so you know though, the state law, when you assess your taxes, every year when the values go up, the law requires your assessment to stay flat. So unless we as a commission go through a truth and taxation hearing, your property tax doesn't change. And so from year to year, it stays the same.
Now, you're talking about my assessment or my tax?
To your actual tax. Yeah, because what happens is that automatically adjusts from year to year. As the value goes up, the assessment goes down to keep it even. But
Then why did our taxes just go up?
well, I'll tell you, this gets quite complicated. When you read your tax notice,
Yeah.
there's about 20 different entities on there.
True.
Well, Weber County only has control over about 2 of them. So all the others, you're right. This last year, your school, that went up. There were bunches that went up. Fire went up. There were several others. And so you're right. Your taxes continue to go up. But in order for us at the county to change your taxes, we have to have a hearing and go through that. And since we've been there, we've not held one. And the last one that was held was 3 years ago. And the commissioners that held it, they're gone. So I think that tells you what happens when you hold a truth and taxation hearings. There's consequences.
Well, I was just thinking as Commissioner Froer was speaking about landowner rights and property rights, and I just feel that a person should have the property rights to not be taxed off their ground due to their becoming senior citizens, et cetera, and being more vulnerable to that inflation.
But your point's well taken.
You're not alone in that thought, Jim.
Okay,
Trust.
what are we gonna do?
We're going to round up Representative Waldrop. We're going to have a discussion with him.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I better jump up.
Now your time.
Since I'm a thorn in Sean's side. 2 issues. One, Ogden Canyon, there's a house falling down into the river. We need to condemn it before it falls into the river and makes a real headache.
We had that very discussion today.
Perfect. You knew I'd be here. Number 2, you've got a storage facility.
I thought that was one of your rentals, eh?
It was. No, it's not. Mine fell down already. Over here off of the highway, just outside of Huntsville. It's got outside storage, and it's not approved for outside storage, and I've been poking for a couple years. Now there's an outside storage billboard that's parked there. See if we can't get rid of that. Thank you.
Can you state your name real quick for the minutes?
No, not real quick. Zane Froer.
Zane, thank you for those comments. We actually are in the middle of discussion. Sean may cover that. I've asked him to look at some ordinance change dealing with existing storage units that don't allow outside storage, that are currently using outside storage. We need to put some teeth into that ordinance. Commissioner Jenkins and I talked with Sean actually this afternoon, and we'll be looking at an ordinance to put some fines in place. An ordinance is great, but unless you have a way to fine or to enforce it, it's not going to happen. So that's what we're going to do.
Nicholas Froer. This seems like a good meeting to introduce myself. In 2017, we joined the park districts up here in the valley, created Ogden Valley Park Service Area. I just want it to be known that we're actively looking to expand and provide usable open space in the valley. As part of that, we're approaching the county to look at the community park area that was set apart as part of the Snow Basin zoning agreement, as well as other areas in East Huntsville. And I just wanted to let this group know that, you know, we are looking at doing that and providing the role up here as the Park Service area.
Do you want to tell everybody where that is, Nick?
Yeah, so this acreage that's set apart in that zoning agreement, if you're not familiar with that, is it on the southeast side as you come down into the valley. There's roughly about 7 acres that are called out there, and you know, I see a lot of thought and preparation going into what that looks like, but I just wanted it to be known that we are in discussions and talking about that.
And you say come down into the valley. There's a lot of places.
Yeah, off of Trappers Loop,
Off
so
of
it's
Trappers.
that piece right there off the highway. Yeah.
And we've encouraged Nick and his board to reach out to all members of the community. We really want to make sure that when and if that gets developed into a park, it's done in a way that will benefit the community with the community input.
Absolutely.
And it's such a great location for the future. So, and we appreciate Nick and his board taking this great amount of work that they're doing. Thank you.
So Nick, you might ask,
Yes.
answer, do you guys have any funds as a board?
We do, yeah,
So you do have some.
yeah.
That's good.
They do.
Right.
Hello, I am Jennifer Denyon, and I'm a newer resident to Huntsville. And we live off of Old Snow Basin Road, and I've been really concerned with the rocks that have been falling onto the road. And I've read an article that you guys have contributed to in Standard, and I know that there's going to be a committee that's following up on the safety. That I think we have about 13 high hazard areas here in the valley. And I personally have, driven my kids to a friend's home, driven home, and the road's been closed with that many big boulders onto the road. And I know that you're probably looking into this, but I just wanted to state a huge safety concern as we drive our family. I actually stopped using the canyon for a good portion of this year just because I was really concerned for our safety. And know other communities and have driven and do a lot of road trips and have seen other ways they mesh things that I know aesthetically we need to look into, but it does seem like I wanted to make sure that this is being addressed, especially where it's such a safety concern, and I'm sure others in the room have also seen this as a bigger problem this year also with all the moisture. So that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, my name is Clay Christensen. I'm a North Ogden resident currently, but I married a Valley girl and I'm working on becoming an Eden resident. I don't know if this one's on your radar or not, but on the 90-degree turn over in Eden, if you're headed south toward Huntsville from Eden Park, there's the main 90-degree turn where you used to go down across the old road across the lake. That corner, my in-laws are on that corner. They stopped reporting the accidents years ago because so many vehicles come off of those corners, both heading south and north. Now there is a beautiful pathway that goes on both sides of that, and which is used by kids going to school. It's not an overstatement to say maybe every third car literally comes off that corner. There's now a big hole in between the road and the pathway where the cars even We were up just this last weekend and watched big semi-trucks come all the way off that corner onto that pathway, right where our kids ride their bikes and where people will be heading, or where the kids head to school. We've talked about, since I joined the family, we've talked about for years different options of guardrail or rounding the corner more or banking it or even stop signs or something to the effect to slow this incident of them coming off, not just even just onto the shoulder, but all the way out into the field, driving 100 yards through a fence, backing up, ripping off their border or their bumper, getting back on the road and continuing. Family members tried to build up the snow this year to protect it a little bit and had a number of cars get high-centered on the snowbanks. But it's a safety issue on a number of different fronts. We'd like to start having some conversation, dialogue about that.
Are they coming off the state road? Is that where
Off the highway.
As they're coming off the state road, so.
Yeah. They continuing south from Eden
Right.
Park or just right on that main one, so off the state road out onto the shoulders.
Okay. I want to talk to you, Doug.
So Joe, you know where he's talking about?
Yes, it's not a state road, it's a county road.
That's a county road.
And we put, about 5 years ago, we put the blinking turn signs up that blink.
Mhm.
In fact, one of your neighbors has actually requested some on the north side.
Oh, okay,
Of
yeah.
the general store. Do you guys like those signs? Do you like, you think they're a good idea? Have they helped?
They tell them, but the kid, I mean, the cars still go off and onto that pathway.
They do, for sure.
Well, maybe we need to do a little study on that, spend some time over there, Joe.
For sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate that, Clay. Well, all right. I see no others standing up, so, oh, here we go.
I got here late, sorry.
Welcome.
Welcome. I'm David Krem from Huntsville, thank you. First, Commissioner Froer, I want to commend you for getting into this situation about ending the bonuses possibly for retirement thing. I think that was a good idea to maybe move forward with that.
I thought so, thank you.
Okay. Road conditions, that's probably been touched upon, but I think a lot of the roads up here could use some refurbishment. There's a lot of rough, chunky areas and potholes, etc. Another thing, Pineview Reservoir, I don't know if it's been brought up, but just the overcrowding we're seeing up here. Parking, beaches, trash, boats, numerous boats and crowding on the ramps and...
We're going to have a discussion about that later tonight.
Are we? Okay, thank you. The Dark Sky Initiative, light ordinances, I think there's been some good pushes to improve that, but I'm still seeing, it seems like many people up in the valley installing, bright lights and that are shining across the valley and things, so I don't know what can be done more about that. The rocks was brought up, so that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for
David.
being here.
All right, we're going to go to the next parts of our agenda. So this is the consent items on our agenda. We spend time before we ever got here going through these, so we don't go to public comment on them, and we'll just scroll through these real quick and agree to consent to the consent. So it's item F on our agenda. We start out with a request for approval of warrants 1769 through 1782 and 438,687 through 438,989 in the amount of $1,257,084. So the county goes through a ton of money, and a lot of the money that we go through is pass-through dollars. There's state funds that we get that go through to the health department and different things like that. So a lot of times you look at these monies and it's a lot, but that's a major portion of what's happening. Item number 2 on the agenda is purchase orders in the amount of $133,539. Item number 3 is a request for the approval of minutes on April 16th and 23rd. Number 4 is a request for the approval to cancel the regular commission meetings scheduled for May 14th and May 21st. To turns out that we'll be out of town. We've got some conferences to go to, and so we won't be in town those days. Item number 5 is a request for Weber County Tax Review Committee for denial of requests for change in the taxable status of parcel number 22070-0010. Item 6 is a request for Weber County Sheriff's Office to approve to surplus lateral infant mannequin. You kind of laugh about this and said, really, do you need to get to that detail? But we get to that detail. We try to make sure we know everything that's happening. Item 7 is a request from the Weber County Roads Department for approval of surplus office equipment and furniture. Item 8 is a request for Weber County Community Development for approval to declare parcel 02-013-0042 as surplus property. So we have a couple of lots that were taken in tax sales, and we've decided to surplus those so that the Weber Housing Authority can build some low-income houses on those. They're actually in Ogden City, but that's what these are. Second, item number 9 is a request for Weber County Community Development for approval to declare parcel 02-013-0058 as surplus property. Yes, that was item number 9. Thank you. Item 10, request for approval of retirement agreement by and between Weber County and the following: Michael Strecker and Jason Talbot. So we approve retirements when people retire. Item number 11 is request for approval of contract by and between Weber County and the following for ramp grants. We had a very good year this money in taxes that were collected for ramp. And this is all you folks that decided you wanted ramp, recreation, arts, museum, and park funds. And so these are the people who this is a partial list, but it's a list that we're approving today. The Beverly Terrace Playhouse season, chamber orchestra concert for Utah UNCON, chamber orchestra season 2019 and 2020, Eccles Arts Center educational program, Eccles Arts Center monthly exhibit and competition, Egyptian Theater Foundation, the theater marquee upgrade, Far West City Section 260 at Smith Family Park, Hooper City Tomato Day Jamboree, North Ogden City Barker Park Amphitheater Phase 2, Ogden Dinosaur Park and Museum Dinosaur Construction, Ogden Dinosaur Park and Museum Education through Technology, Ogden Dinosaur Park and Museum Trail Accessibility, Ogden Downtown Alliance 150th Sesquicentennial, Ogden Downtown Alliance Downtown Arts Program, Ogden Downtown Alliance Farmers Market Program, Ogden School Foundation 2019 Summer Arts, Ogden Symphony and Ballet On Stage Ogden 2019 season. The Treehouse Museum, count me in. Treehouse Museum Mapping the World, Treehouse Museum Master Makers. Utah Humanities Council, Weber County Center for Book Programming, Weber Cultural Legacy Foundation Ogden Marathon Festival, Weber Pathways, East Fork of Wheeler Creek Trail Rehab, Weber Pathways North Fork Park Trail Install, and Weber Pathways Weber County Trail Maintenance. So those are the items that were approved by the ramp board. And Shelley, how many dollars did ramp have this year?
Almost $4 million.
Yeah, so almost $4 million we gave out this year in your taxes to these different projects. Commissioner?
I would make a motion to approve the consent agenda. I'd like to briefly speak to that if I could.
And I'll second it. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to give recognition to Shelley and everybody on the ramp committee. If you're here on the ramp committee, do we have anybody here tonight, please raise your hand, or I don't see anybody. They do an awesome job. Keep in mind that these ramp funds were self-imposed by the voters on the sales tax. So the voters of Weber County decided that they felt that these organizations, these nonprofits you just heard us talk about, received dollars to do what they do best. The thing that I like about this is really twofold. Number one, there's a large oversight by Shelley and her group and the RAMP committee to go through these to make sure the dollars are being spent in the way that will benefit the community. And part of that benefit, number two, is to see that they put some of their own funds, their own skin in the game as well. So this is not a 100% government program. This is supported by our nonprofits, both in a financial standpoint and also in a labor standpoint. From pathways all the way up through, you can see this is benefits our community. And I could say without a doubt that we couldn't accomplish what these nonprofits and organizations do for 4 or 5 times the amount of dollars of that $4 million if we did it ourselves.
Thank you, Commissioner. So, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So that passes. All right, we're on to item G. We're changing around the items that are up first. So the very first item, I'm going to turn over to Commissioner Flohr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what we've been asked to do is Mayor Truitt had an action item on agenda item 7 dealing with high-powered rifles between the highways. This was an issue that he brought to myself and Representative Waldrop about a year or so ago. Mayor, are you still here? We put him up front so he could come up and explain this issue, and then we could explain what needs to happen. Representative Waldrop, before you leave, we're going to need you up here as well. Jim just had knee surgery, for those that weren't aware of that.
Yeah, 4 days in.
And we won't be taking any action on this item. This is for presentation. Go ahead.
Anyways, thank you for putting this on the agenda. So this is really a concern that we have here in Huntsville in the Upper Valley, in and around Pineview Reservoir. So, you know, there's a lot of hunting, a lot of shooting going on with high-powered rifles. And just to be clear, I am a hunter. You know, I do own guns, and I love to hunt. This is a safety concern, public safety. You know, there's a few people here that come to talk tonight as well, but you know, people are actually shooting from the roads in Huntsville with high-powered rifles, and it's just a matter of time before somebody gets injured or killed. The problem is you know, it's supposed to be 600 feet away from any buildings, outbuildings, but you know, and also you're not supposed to shoot over any bodies of water. But that's happening. It's happening up here all the time. For those who live here in Huntsville, you know, Saturday mornings, whatnot, late at night, well, at dusk, you could hear gunshots. You know, especially in hunting season. You know, when I hunt, I go up in the mountains and I hunt. You know, I know there's the Ogden zone is a part of this valley, but I'd like you to consider to do something about high-powered rifles being shot in and around Pineview Reservoir. So there's people that like to go, you know, shoot at a tree stump, but you know, it's ricochets and whatnot. There's more and more homes being built up here in the valley all the time, and it's just a matter of time before somebody is killed or injured. So what I proposed, and I've talked to Steve and to Gage, is that there's a natural boundary around Pineview Reservoir. Highway 39 wraps all the way around that. Is there any way that we can actually put a bill in place that will eliminate any high-powered rifles, muzzle loaders being shot within that zone? And so that's what I'd like for you to contemplate. And again, this is not anti-hunting or anything like that. This is a public safety. The young man that was shot up, you know, that happened up in the mountains. You can imagine what could happen down here because there's more people down here. So anyway, I'd like you to consider helping me put a stop to this.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
before you go, can you just share kind of you've had discussions with law enforcement, and one of the issues is sort of this patchwork of ownership.
Steve, you may want to start making your way up here.
So, yeah, so, Lori, are you going to be able to talk tonight about your incidents? Okay, so a year or so ago, there was some hunters in Camel, right off of First South, right off the guardrail, shot 2 bucks. And they were trying to get them on the back of their truck, before anybody seen them, and they got pretty much ran out of town on a rail because, you know, it's shooting right by the roadway, and the gut piles were probably 40, 50 feet away from the road. And anyway, so, you know, of course, you know, we call and stuff like that, but it's, you know, where did you shoot it, you know, how far away, and stuff like that. So, you know, they were cited in this case, but a lot of times what happens is when people here in Huntsville, when they call the sheriff's department, they come up, but, you know, they can't do anything because it's 600 feet, you know, if it's 600 feet. Well, we all know a high-powered rifle will travel a lot further than that. So it is a public safety concern that we have, and we just got to do something. I mean, it's a natural barrier around Pineview, and just makes sense. Anything on the inner corridor of Highway 39, no shooting with high-powered rifles. And again, we just need your help because it's different agencies are pointing fingers at, you know, well, you know, where did this happen? And, you know, well, it's not against the law. The Forest Service, you know, they have to be involved in it too because a lot of it's on Forest Service property. You know, and what happens too in the fall, when the water level drops, it creates more area. But we actually, Steve and I, Lori, we actually went down to the state house, and we talked to a representative down there too about it. And she was very surprised that this is still happening. So, Steve, I forgot her name.
Right.
Oh. So, anyway.
Representative Lisenby.
Yeah, Lisenby. So we made it, you know, very obvious that it's not about hunting. It's
right.
about public safety. And she was very surprised that this is still going on.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So let me just give the 30-second version of why we're here, this issue. So state law, and this is what we looked at last year when Representative Waldrop was asked to see what we could do. State law actually allows municipalities to outlaw, put certain gun controls, but they don't allow that in counties. So what we would need, this is a legislative fix. This is not anything that we could do as a county commission without legislative approval. So that's when we brought Representative Waldrop into the equation, asked him to look at some possible fixes to that, possibly amending code so that counties in some circumstances could outlaw shooting in this particular situation. Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner, and Mary, thank you for bringing this to my attention. The state law right now does not allow counties to take any action to restrict firearms in any fashion. Municipalities can do it, so Huntsville Town can do it, but what happens, and what we've seen is you have Huntsville Town, and you have the lake, and you have the Forest Service, and you have private property owners, so we have this very patchwork system, and with the heavy usage around Pineview, it becomes a significant public safety issue. And again, we're not talking about shotguns, we're talking about bullets that can travel a mile, you know, anybody that's a hunter or a shooter knows that there are certain safety protocols you follow, and those don't exist around Pineview. Those safety protocols cannot exist because of the natural topography of the land. So I don't think in practice this is going to offend anybody, but it will require a change to state law. So we'll need some support at the State House, because there's going to be, anytime you deal with Second Amendment rights, it becomes a very, very politically charged issue. People want to you know, make sure that we're not infringing on their rights, but at the same time, you know, as a public servant, we all have a duty to make sure the public is safe, and there have been some reports of incidents within Huntsville Town, and the mayor obviously gets those calls first, where you have people shooting in inappropriate areas, and it's just hard to imagine an area around Pineview from the highway in, and you that live here can think through this with me, but where there's a safe spot to shoot a high-powered rifle, where you have a natural backstop where you can see the potential travel path of your bullet, and so it's just it's probably a very needful thing. And this will also allow us to post signage, and that'll probably be the biggest thing, is just education, so that people don't go in there with the expectation that they can hunt, or that this, so we can deal with it on sort of a holistic basis instead of the piecemeal issue that's going on right now with various law enforcement agencies. They all kind of point at each other and say, well, that's your area, no, that's yours, and it becomes really, really difficult to control. So, again, no action tonight. This is for feedback. If anybody has any feedback, please get with Commissioner Farrar or myself or Mayor Truitt with your thoughts on that, but we'll be working with other interested parties to see if we can craft a narrowly tailored solution for this specific issue without getting into the broader discussion of Second Amendment rights.
Representative, do you think it's something we could maybe get on the interim committee agenda?
I think, yes, we're going to try and do that, so we get it discussed.
That'd probably be an appropriate place for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Representative. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
No, I'm going to get right back to you. You're on item 2 also, so keep on going.
Well, we'll back up to it. So,
oh, okay.
Get the update first.
If I might have a word regarding the last that we were just talking about.
Go ahead.
Real quickly.
State
My
your
name is Randy Lloyd. I live here in Huntsville.
Hey, Randy.
The incident that they've been talking about took place just across the street from our house. We live on 100 and 7200. It may have been legally 600 feet from the road from our house, but it was not from our neighbor's home. The two individuals, a gentleman was probably in his 40s or 50s, and his son had been hunting just in the flats out there. Quite frankly, by law, they have their 600 feet, but the bullet would travel way beyond that, and our house would be in jeopardy. My wife, which prior to us meeting several years back, her home had been hit by a bullet, a stray bullet. She lived in the Heritage Knoll subdivision just by Middle Inlet, and the deputies came out and they investigated, and they actually took a round out of a windowsill that had traveled. Now, they had no idea where it came from. Bottom line is why would anybody want to hunt inside of Huntsville, proper, inside? It's like a petting zoo, and that particular night, it was like a feeding frenzy. Those two individuals who shot the deer, and they were in fact cited, by the way, but those two individuals were only two of several. There was another truck running around the town because the bucks were running back and forth over the peninsula here. And, you can't have that and be safe. It's, I'm sorry, but, my life, my wife's life, and the children, are more important than somebody getting their deer tag. And as this gentleman said, I'm just trying to teach my son what it's all about. That's not hunting, come on. So, again, I would encourage that we look into this and change that border where they can and can't hunt. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for those remarks.
You bet, thank you. Next item up, item number 1, Dyer's Wood. Joe Hadley and Taylor Christensen, I think they're both here. Who's going to take the lead on this? You, Taylor? Okay.
Alright, first of all, I'd like to thank you guys for having me here tonight to talk about this for a second. Dyer's Wood, I'm sure everybody in the room knows exactly what it is and what it looks like. It has fallen to a Class 2 weed as far as the state's concerned on the noxious weed list. That means that it's in the control stage. Completely eradicating it is probably out of the question at this point. So what we're trying to do is control it and keep it from spreading and causing any more problems to the landowners and to the counties. It is a biannual weed, meaning that it has a 2-year life cycle, and we can treat it and can remove it in both the first year and the second year of its life cycle. We as a county, the biggest measures that we take is spraying all of our right-of-ways and all of the county properties, as well as the trails and the parks when we can. Also, another thing, I'd like to let all the residents know that we do offer a spray service for residents. If they need help, just contact us, and we're more than happy to come help them. So that's all I have, unless there's any questions.
So Taylor, once Dyer's Wood gets to a certain point, it spreads. You really can't kill it at that point, can you?
Correct. It seeds in its second year of life. And it doesn't seed until late to midsummer of the second year. So even if you see a flower, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's gone to seed. We still can treat it at that point. But after that flower has dropped the seeds, then you're going to have to come back the next year and treat the new growth.
So it's important that we get on it when we can.
Yep. And you're gonna have, and honestly, it's not just, you can't just go spray it once, then infestation once, and think it's gonna be gone. It's gonna take several years to get one infestation to be completely eradicated.
You know, when we were in the legislature, Gage and I, when we first started, there wasn't that much Dyer's Wood around. And I'm just amazed how fast that has grown and propagated.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
Yep, and that's a biannual weed. The first year, you're not gonna see much of it above ground, but that first year it's growing down, and its roots can go up to 5 feet deep. So that's kind of what gives it the competitive advantage over the perennials and the native grasses.
Very good.
Any questions?
Thanks, Taylor.
That service. Go ahead.
A question.
Go ahead.
Should I segue in?
Sure. Go ahead.
I'm Bruce Keswick. I live up in Nordic Valley. We have a question. Last year, the old golf course property up there, which is 50-some acres, was totally covered with Dyer's Wood, went completely to seed. And how do we contact you or whom about hopefully getting that treated, because that's a source of spreading it all over Nordic Valley.
So what I would have to say about that is that the property owner, if it's on private property, the property owner is ultimately responsible. But that's where I come in, is if they're not taking care of it and they give permission, I can go spray it, and then there's just a small charge for the acreage that's sprayed. So if somebody doesn't have the capability to treat it themselves, come to me and I can help.
You understand that?
So there's
Okay.
a cost. There's a cost.
They have to reach out to you.
Yes.
Let's make that clear.
It's on the county's website, but it's 801-399-8356.
And you mentioned the private property owner has to approve
Right.
that service.
Right, I
So, like,
can't,
we can call on somebody's big, huge acreage,
Mhm.
but if they don't approve, nothing happens.
if they don't approve, I can't just go on their
Right.
property and treat it.
But it seeds
I can-
and spreads all over everybody else.
Right, I can reach out to them and try and get a hold of them and try and work something out to where we can treat it, but I can't just go on somebody's property and spray it.
Very good. Thanks, Taylor.
Sorry, do we fine people?
Do we
If
find
they,
them?
yeah, if they won't do anything about it?
Not that I'm aware of, I've
Well,
never.
I'll be talking about that in about 60 seconds.
Okay, all right.
We do have a noxious weed ordinance, and when I built my first building, we took an open field and scraped it. And when we started hauling those weeds off, or those piles of dirt off, the county came and stopped us and said we couldn't, you know, they said you can use it as fill, but it has to be capped. And, you know, I had 10,000 cubic yards of dirt. So it took a while to get rid of that, but they watched me very closely on it, to make sure I disposed of it correctly.
Okay.
I'd
Yes,
like
sir.
to make a comment about the Dyer's Wood, please.
Yes.
My name's Stephen Clark. I live up on Middle Fork. I'm a botanist. And Dyer's Wood is a very successful plant in the sense that when the seeds germinate, the seeds are programmed so that a certain percentage of them will germinate the first year, the second year, the third year, and up till the seventh year. So every seed crop has the capacity to produce new plants for 7 years. So it's absolutely essential that you get the plant before it sets seed, because every time it sets seed, you've got a 7-year cycle that you have to deal with.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We appreciate that. So to all you folks who're sitting out here, if we're going to fight this battle and do it successfully, it's a community effort, right? That's what we're saying. Very good. Gage, you got the next item, number 2.
Thank you. So let me just give a brief update since we're talking about Dyer's Wood. As many people in this room know, myself and a number of other people, huge part of this group and others took an active role in trying to eradicate Dyer's Wold in this valley 10 or 11 years ago. We've been, in my opinion, very successful in that, though we have a long ways to go. And part of the issue we have is that we have some of our neighbors, both that live here and a lot that don't live here, that just haven't bought into the concept that they need to get rid of Dyer's Wood. So I actually approached the commission a couple, 3 years ago and said, let's pass an ordinance that gives us the ability, much like a nuisance ordinance, that we see that if, in fact, that person does not take on the responsibility to clean his lot or his yard, that they should be fined, or that the county should have the ability to go in and clean it up and charge them, which we do in some cases. But nothing took place, and I found out why nothing took place, because what has to happen, and Cortland's here, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is in order to do that, we actually have to form a noxious weed board. And that board, once formed, can then make suggestions or decisions on what is a noxious weed, and they have the ability to go in and, at that point in time, would come to the commission for approval for liens or fines. So it's going to be my suggestion to the other county commissioners that we actually form that board. So, by the way, I'm looking for volunteers tonight. Make sure you get in contact with me. But the way that we solve this, I don't think this is a solvable problem until such time as we can get everybody to participate in cleaning their particular piece of property. We can't do it all ourselves, even though we've made a lot of progress. So that is going to be my direction over the next couple of months as we look at several ordinances to address nuisance, both as we talked about earlier with storage facilities, noxious weeds, etc. And I'm not a believer that government should have a role in everything and controlling people's lives. I think you know that from my 12 years in the legislature. I avoided most of that legislation. But there are times when certain rights that we possess are infringed upon by other people by not doing their job, such as speeding, etc. And so that's the time that government has to get involved, in my opinion. So that's my paid political speech for the night. But so now we're going to go on to something a little more appropriate, and I believe Shanna Francis is here. Shanna, would you like to come up? So Shanna and Jeannie Wendell actually approached me a number of years ago and talked about this problem. We decided to kind of form a small group. At that time, we set an annual Dyer's Woad day that we had. Some of those days were not the best of weather. Some other days were great. We had usually a fairly good turnout, and we think we made a pretty good inroads to at least beginning to solve this problem. The other problem's going to have to be solved with ordinances. But I wanted to take a second just to give recognition to both Jeannie and Shanna for their hard work, because without their work, their involvement, we wouldn't be where we are today in this valley. So, Commissioner, would you come up and... Jeannie's out of town, but we're going to give both of these. Shannon, do you want to take that?
Please. Can I set these here for just a minute?
Yeah. They're kind of heavy, aren't they?
Well, Gage had invited Jeannie and I personally to come to this meeting, and I was unaware that this was going to happen until I looked at the agenda late last night. I went, oh boy. But I did want to take a minute. This has been an ongoing battle, and it's not just Jeannie and I, Representative Frohr in his position, and the county that has stepped up, but I just went through some of our old issues of the paper on the on my computer, and starting in 2001, we see articles about pathways, Ogden Canyon Club. Let me just, if I may take a minute here. So, there have been many, many efforts and many people in the valley, and I want to make sure that they're given recognition also for their efforts. The Forest Service, and many years now, the sixth graders at Valley Elementary, in conjunction with Pathways, and the teachers supporting that. We had Kyle Frohr, who was 14 in 2006, his parents Bryce and Joan, for his Eagle Scout project. He was able to eradicate 700 pounds of Dyer's Woad from the valley. I thought that was interesting in 2006. The Weber Soil Conservation Districts had the Bag of Woad program, where they'd give $10 for every 40 pounds for kids that they collected Dyer's Woad. Waypoint Academy boys every year are out there when we do our annual event. They've been incredible. There was a program, well, on that Bag of Woad, in 2008 in the article it said that 650 youth participated in that, and $12,000 was given away to kids for collecting Dyer's Woad, and $750 of that money came from Huntsville youth, or went to Huntsville youth who participated in that. So it has been tried to be a community effort to eradicate Dyer's Woad, and we just need to keep on it and appreciate Gage, Commissioner Gage and Representative Gage, and when he wore that hat, support. We just really appreciate it. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Shannon. And just so you know, the next, Shannon didn't mention it, our next Dyer's Woad Eradication Day will be May 11th, Saturday. We will be doing burgers. The fellow commissioners will be with us. I also have confirmed with our sheriff that we'll be having some inmates come up and help in that eradication along public right-of-ways. So we expect a great turnout. We'd like to have everybody in the valley. Please be there. We look forward to seeing you on May 11th, Eaton Park lunch at 12 o'clock. Thank you. Mr. Chair, back to you.
You bet. All right, next up is on G is item number 3, which is a stormwater update and a runoff update, and on our emergency preparedness by Lance Peterson. Lance?
Good evening, commissioners, everyone. I've been asked to do a presentation on a very successful training event we had here a couple of weeks ago in the county, as well as an update on the 2019 spring runoff. Not the Ogden Marathon, but the real spring runoff. Okay, we've gone from Dyer's Woad to flooding. I don't know if we're going down the tube or not here, but I have a few slides here just to help me stay focused here and not ramble on too much. 3 years ago, we applied to FEMA, the Emergency Management Institute, to conduct a course. They call it an Integrated Emergency Management Course. And they came here this year. It took us 3 years to get them here. We had 173 attendees. 8 cities were represented. We had Weber State, both hospitals, dispatch, Weber Morgan Health District was there. We even had quite a few volunteers from various religious organizations and service organizations, as well as FEMA and State Emergency Management and UDOT. We had a lot of people there. And for 4 days, we learned and talked about earthquake threat. We had an earthquake expert from the state come up and talk to us about what to expect. They have a HAZUS computer modeling that kind of forecasts for us what to expect in a large earthquake, and what kind of debris we would expect and damage to our property and our utilities, our infrastructure. We talked about rapid situational assessment. How the cities and the county need to quickly do a rapid assessment, or we also call it a windshield survey, that initial damage assessment of what's happened out in the community so that we can prioritize and send our resources, although they will be totally overwhelmed, to the highest priority incidents that are going on here in the community. We had a great presentation from Weber Fire District. They're great partners in this emergency management effort. And they talked about their role in heavy urban search and rescue and hazmat and emergency medical response and fire. We talked about public works, and the debris removal was really a big part of that. And how do we deal with all of the rubble and debris and construction debris removal in a large event like that. UDOT talked about their roads. We talked about mass care and housing. Presentation from our local Red Cross representatives. We had a presentation from federal and state response, how to go through that declaration process and how the federal and state government brings their resources to the table to help us locals. We have a saying in emergency management that it only rains at the local level, and federal and state come in to help support us. And what kind of documentation and processes we have to go through to obtain public assistance. If we get a federal declaration from the White House, what that really does is brings a checkbook to help us restore the public infrastructure, not private infrastructure, but public owned, city and county owned infrastructure. We talked about special needs and how we need to make sure that all of those who are disabled or have access to functional needs are included in our efforts, and we don't forget them. 14 years ago, after returning from Katrina and after doing some other planning here, we created a special needs registry here in the county, and we gave it to the governor back in about 2006 or 7 to roll it out statewide. So we know when we do an evacuation, we can go to that registry and find out where people are that need help in an evacuation setting. We did a big exercise on Wednesday. We had 8 city EOCs, Emergency Operations Centers, activated. We had the county EOC activated, and we went through a process of coordinating with each other and sharing information and supporting each other. Thursday we had a table talk, and we talked about rebuilding the city and county infrastructure, rebuilding our communities, and then what can we do to help our citizens with their unmet needs. Just stop and think about how many homes will be really affected with the damage from an earthquake, and they don't have insurance to help them get through this. It'll be quite an economic disaster. So from that, we're looking at continuing with modifying our plans, our protocols, especially with our emergency operations centers. And we're going to have a debriefing next week with all the city emergency managers and come up with a little action plan. My plan by the end of the year is to have our team in our county EOC feeling very comfortable with 2 or 3 more training events so that they can step into an emergency operations center and respond to a disaster and coordinating resources. Now let's talk about the real fun thing here in the spring runoff. As you all know, we've had a pretty good snow year. Starting in February, I start looking at all of the SNOTEL sites. And you can't just look at a SNOTEL site and say, oh, there's a lot of snow up there. You have to do some comparisons. So this here is Horse Ridge. It's east of Causey. And the blue line there is this year. The red is 2017, and the blue is 2011. So usually about February, March, whenever we have a good snow year, snowpack, people start coming to me and saying, oh man, I can't believe we're going to be flooding. We're going to have we've got so much snow up there. Well, when you look at it in the context of those other years where we had the flooding, we're doing pretty good, really. We build snowpack every year till April 1st. Some of them go the first week of April, but right around April 1st is we're building snowpack. And in those other years, you can see we built snowpack way out into May. And another thing you can see on these averages, I always usually take the average in the current year, and now I take 2017 and 2011, and I compare them, and I can see that, well, we're not as bad as 2011 or 2017. We're there. We also can see the melt window. Usually, on average, we have about 2.5 months of a melting season on Horse Ridge, and you can see where on those other years, it was shortened to about 1 month, 1 month and a half on those 2 years there. So I look at that. Then I look at Dry Bread Pond a little bit further north towards Monty, and you can see again we're getting close to following 2017. But look at this point spread between now, the first, and where we were there. So there's a big difference, even though our lines are starting to merge there. Monte Cristo, higher up, 9,000 foot elevation just about, and we're up there playing around with 2017. But 2011, look where we were on on June 1st, way up here, and that melt window, instead of taking almost 2.5, 3 months, we did that melt in 1 month, slightly over that. A lot of concern with the news media about Pineview. There are automatic little notifications that take place when we start getting close to the flood staging there. Ogden River is one of the most controlled rivers in the state, really. It's running at, it's permitted at 1,600. It's running at 1,600 right now, really close. There was a problem with the river gauge we discovered last Friday, and it kind of freaked a bunch of us out, including the guys at Weber Basin. When they start stuttering, I know they're freaked out when they call me. So we were all kind of wondering what was going on, and we realized we can't let any more water out of Huntsville. The good news is we made headway on Pineview. Pineview spiked a couple of weeks ago at 1,900 CFS on the inflow, and we're only permitting at 1,800. And so we were losing ground really quickly, so they had to increase that. And here's where I show the spike there. That's where we were up there, about 1,900. So the inflow is coming down with this cooler weather, and you can see the diurnal flows there every day. That's just the daily melt from the sun and cooling off at night. The South Fork has always been always a concern because Causey Reservoir fills and spills in about a week. And you can see here where we've been really high, been spiking a little bit here. Right around here it starts to jump the bank in what I call Horseshoe Subdivision. That's the first subdivision just as you go into South Fork Canyon. But it is coming down. But the other side of it is Causey Reservoir will spill probably Thursday night, Friday. But that's not a Chicken Little kind of a thing. If we look at the inflow over here on Causey, we were really spiking last week, and now that with the cooler weather it's come down. But right now there's about 150 CFS coming out of Causey through the control works. So if you take about 400 CFS, even at that peak, subtract the existing 150, I got to see in math, so what's that, 250? Yeah, 250 I think. So that would increase, once it spills, that would increase the South Fork by about 250 CFS. So that would put us back up to here, just a little under action level there. So even if we do start spilling here, I think Beaver Creek has slowed down a lot, and we should be okay. We did do a preliminary precautionary sandbagging at the Horseshoe Saturday morning. Had a great turnout from the residents there. We had a couple of our CERT folks come, and I think we'll be okay there. High water is pretty much gone there, I think, and I think we might just sneak by without any serious flooding there. Pineview releases will remain high. There is a possibility tomorrow or the next couple of days that they might decrease the flow by a couple hundred CFS. Would make that much good progress. Utah Dam up on North Fork did spill about a week ago or so. I got my alert warning on that. About 6 inches. North Fork seems okay. I haven't had any calls from any of the landowners up there. Our big worry that we always have up here is sheet flooding in February, and it sounds odd, but our flood season up here starts February 18th, and it's just the oddity of that date. Always that week we get a call. But we watch those river gauges really close. If you'd like to look at them, There's the URL, wrh.noaa.gov/slc/river. And if you ever have any questions, they're always welcome to call me. But any questions, commissioners, on where we're at with any of our runoff?
So when do we normally peak on the Weber?
It's a little bit later. It's usually around the end of May, 1st of June, roughly.
On the runoff?
Yeah, yeah. We haven't even started the Weber runoff yet. We
Well,
really
I meant
haven't.
the Ogden.
You meant the Ogden. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I meant the Ogden. When do we peak on the Ogden? Normally?
If we, normally, it's, let's see, this is first week or two of May.
Yeah, so
First week coming up.
the next week or two, we should peak and.
If it's a normal year, that's the, that's the caveat there.
Well, you talked about still building snow load, and I thought to myself, if you drove up here tonight, we were building snow load tonight. It was snowing a little as we were out there and raining and.
Yes, yes, it's been quite a wet year and it's great, but I think so far, knock on wood, I don't want to jinx it, but I think so far we're doing pretty good and the outlook is favorable. So, thank you.
All right. Are there any folks that would like to question Lance? He'll probably leave when we get done with this. Yes, ma'am.
That education session that you mentioned in the beginning of your presentation, you had people there from South Ogden or Westwood. Was there anybody there from Ogden Valley?
No, there wasn't anyone from Huntsville.
Is it only for the incorporated areas?
The Upper Valley, the Upper Valley is covered by the Weber County Emergency Operations Center. So it's for the departmental people who are representing the county response organizations to come. It wasn't for volunteers or anything like that. And you know that, I appreciate that question because that does bring up one thing. I hear all the time, oh, if we have a disaster, we're all alone up here. We're on our own up here in the Upper Valley. And nothing can be farther from the truth. I know we have 3 commissioners, myself, Joe Hadley, the sheriff, the fire chief, all of the departments in the county. Our unincorporated area is the most important to us. And we'll crawl through scorpions if we have to get help up here. You're not alone, and we won't forget you.
Thanks. Laura?
Is CERT still active up here?
Yes, it is.
Under your direction?
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
When is your next CERT class?
We just finished one up here. We held one up here just in March, and our next one will be in September. We just established the dates with our CERT council last night. I want to say September 19th through October, the second week of October. And we'll probably hold this one down in the lower valley.
And will you have another one next spring up here?
Possibly. We'll just have to see how much interest there is and what kind of response we get. We have alternated from time to time between here and there. Sometimes we do a couple down there and then one up here. It just kind of depends. You know, in the past I've had classes up here and I have had more people from the lower valley and Davis County come up here to take the class than I had from people up here. So we're trying to refocus some of our recruiting efforts to be able to tap into more and more people and get better response up here. Yes, ma'am.
How big a class do you need to come up here? So if somebody was really interested, I mean, I took CERT and it changed my life. It really
good.
did. It totally changed my observation and made me feel confident if anything ever to happen, what to do and how to be efficient and not to be the second disaster. So, and that was several years ago. I still remember all that.
Good.
The rest is. So
Well, good. We'll send you, try to get you to be on our team then.
Well, I would love to help. I love
Okay,
CERT.
great.
I go on a state thing, but how many, let's say she wanted to have a class up here, how many people does she need to get?
We've usually gone with 20 to 30 people. If we have, one time we had a class up here and there were 32 people from the Upper Valley registered. At the end of the first class, and I don't know who did the recruiting or who gave the misinformation out, but I had probably 7/8 of them come up to me afterwards and say, well, I thought this was only a one-night class. I can't attend the other classes. So we're going to renew our recruiting efforts, and we had a very good turnout. I think we had 22 people from the Upper Valley at the last class up here. I'm looking for 50 people who are willing to be committed volunteers and be part of our Upper Valley Weber County team. We had 150 people, I believe, that have been trained up here. And I had my assistant Eli send them all, I think he sent them all an email that we had on records. And saying, if you'd like to still be interested, would you please fill out an application and get it to us. And he's had 3 respond out of that 150, and they were all, oh no, we're doing something else. So we've had 0 response out of those 150, and that's just fine. It would be great if we had 5,000 people up here trained in CERT, but I'm really looking for 50 committed volunteers to be our volunteer managers. Yes, ma'am.
So there, we have a website, the Community Foundation of Ogden Valley. One of their nonprofits is the CERT, and if you just get on our website, you'll be able to contact them directly. And then they, of course, stay in touch with him and coordinate. But that's through the CFOB. Okay, welcome.
And what's the CFOB?
CFOB is the Community Foundation of Ogden Valley that all of the nonprofits in the valley are a part of. They raise money for us. We raise money for our nonprofits, etc. And just as a thing, I also certified and never received an email. I would have absolutely.
Yeah.
So I guess we could contact you.
Contact me, yes. Some of those email lists have changed, and I was surprised that we got no replies back. Well, we got 3, and they were not interested. So, yeah.
All right, Lance, thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Good. So, just so you know, I would like everybody who came up tonight with the county to stand up, and I want you to tell everybody your name and what department you represent. So, yeah, Cortland, start with you.
My name is Cortland Erickson. I'm with the County Attorney's Office.
Holland Wilbanks, County Economic Development.
I'm Ryan Kelly. I'm the Elections Director.
John Bond, Weber County Treasurer. Gary Myers, Weber County Engineering.
Sean Wilkinson, Weber County Community Development Director.
My name is Scott Mendoza, and I am a project coordinator in the Community Development Department.
Linda Weinsgard, and I'm with the County Library System.
Very good. Thank you very much. So, later tonight when we adjourn this meeting, if there's something specifically that interests you here, you can see the people, are welcome to talk with them. Very good. Next up on our agenda is an update on the 2019 special events in the Valley. And Scott Mendoza, you're here to go over that.
Yes, Commissioners, thank you. Thanks for allowing a couple minutes to receive an update on 2019 special events. Just before we get started, what I want to let everybody know is there is a list just outside the door by the agendas for the meeting, and you're welcome to pick one up if you care to look at the list of special events that are lining up for this year. What the Community Development Department was planning on doing tonight was presenting you with pretty much just the list of special events, just so you were aware of what was lining up this summer in terms of special events. It's a list that is showing us what events are and what events may be scheduled for this summer. There are dates associated with them, so very easy to read there. But while we've got a few minutes, what I thought we would also do is just go through a couple things. I just want to mention a couple things about special events and some of the good changes that have occurred. They have to do with the special event review process and the county special event webpage. So as far as the process, what's really nice right now is that special events have become a project in the county's project tracking system. It's called Mirati. Prior to a few years ago, projects were just coming in and they were being passed around hard copies of applications to different review agencies. Now the projects come in, they're taken in, they're put into Mirati. Agencies are notified, agencies can now give review comments. The reason that that's really nice is because the process, as far as an approval, has become much more efficient, much more streamlined for event organizers and the review agencies. What else is very nice is that the public, all that information is right at their fingertips. They can grab that information, they can find out what events are being proposed, they can receive all review agency comments and know exactly what's going on with each and every event. That great idea came from, I believe it was Tammy Adelot and Iris Hennon. They worked very closely with the county's IT department. That was wonderful, and made that available to us. What else I'd like to also mention along the lines of process is that we added a few new review agencies. The new agencies consist of the Forest Service, the Ogden-Weaver Convention and Visitors Bureau, the county's road department, the State Tax Commission, the Utah Film Commission, and our most recent addition is our Ogden Valley Parks District. So it's going to be very helpful to have them not only be able to provide comments, but just to have them in the know about what's going on in and around the valley. As far as that web page, overall, the web page has been updated. It now has links to several more important websites and to some very important forums. It also now includes a calendar, so anybody can get on the special event website and scroll down to the very bottom, find the calendar, and you'll be able to see all the events, the number of days that that event covers, and a small description of where that event is. In fact, there's a link that's provided there in that description that you can copy and paste into your browser, and you can go right to the special event project in Mirati. That idea, I'm going to give some credit to Ron Gleason. He asked that we may even be able to provide a link from the calendar to the project in Mirati, and we were able to do that. So, now as far as your update on 2019 events, I'll lead you to the second page in your packets there. If you can pull that up on, well, Mr. Jenkins, it looks like you don't have your iPad.
Yeah, I didn't bring my iPad.
In the packets, I'm going to give you mine.
Here, we can share this.
We can share this.
Okay, we got it, let's go.
So you can see the number of events. These are countywide, but the events that are in bold are the events that will be held in Ogden Valley. The highlighting is intended to show you what weekends may be quite busy. That's what we really want to point out to you. We have a few new events. One is called Iron Lung. It sounds like it's the first year that it would be scheduled to take place in Ogden Valley. It's a road cycling race event. The Electric Powwow is an art and music festival that would be held up South Fork Canyon at Memorial Park, on the county's park, this summer sometime. And the Utah High School Cycling League has started to have events here. Now that one's not necessarily new, but last year they held their first event at Powder Mountain. This year that event will actually take place 3 times. Twice at Powder Mountain and once at Snow Basin. And that event has to do with high school cycling teams. Well, Commissioners, that's all I have for you as far as an update. I know that from time to time we do get calls. There are concerns because of additional traffic and congestion. And that's exactly why we wanted to bring this list of events to your attention.
Scott, maybe just make mention, you can see that if you look at that list, there's 2 or 3 weekends that will impact the valley significantly. I've actually met with Scott, a couple other people, including the sheriff, that we looked at some ways to possibly modify start times, etc., traffic flows to minimize the impact we're going to have on the valley. It's no guarantee you won't see some traffic delays, but we are making a major effort in working with the organizers, with the sheriff's department, and with the county to try to mitigate some of these traffic concerns as much as possible. We just become the place where people like to come to recreate, which is both good and bad, so we welcome them in.
That's very true, and I really appreciate your help doing that, because once an event submits an application, that will get sent out to the review agencies, and then if you've already had that conversation, they'll be prepared to make comments and set requirements for the event organizer to have to meet.
Yeah, and that's a major change that we saw with these event organizers now having to receive approval, and we have some clout at the county to basically say, we're gonna only allow so many in on certain weekends so we can adjust dates rather than everybody showing up the same weekend, so.
Right, and a lot of these event organizers are very good to work with. In fact, Mr. Christensen is here tonight. He represents, I know the Eden Epic and one other event up here voluntarily. He took a look at the events. He understood that Xterra was happening the same day his event was going to occur. He's changed that date at least a week or two. So that's something that we can do voluntarily, is go and work with the event organizers and see what they're willing to do. The problem comes up when they've already invested a lot of money into their marketing, and they've had plans and people signing up to participate in these events, but they didn't know other events were taking place. That's another reason why that event calendar on the website's been helpful. What we are seeing is that the events from 2017 to now, every year, we're receiving about a 20% increase in the number of events. In 2017, we had about 14 submit applications. In 2018, we saw about 5 more, about 19 or so. This year, we're lining up with about 24 or 25. So it's becoming much more popular.
Sounds like we need to have a discussion about how many, if we put a limit on that. You know?
It's a discussion. Good idea.
Yes. Would you like to comment on this?
Yes. Just a question. So we're
You've got to come up to the mic if you're going to comment. Everything's recorded tonight, so once again, state your name.
Jennifer Dunyan, and I just had a question too. Ongoing support these types of events. I know that like the pathways are maintained by private funding, a lot of them, like the Weber Pathways Foundation. And I'm learning more about that as we moved up here. But is there some consideration for long-term planning that there's some built-in funds, maybe with the tourism that comes to Utah, or when these funds come here, is there something that's earmarked to maintain these and the facilities that they're using, whether it be the trails or community, like maybe just a long-term vision to make sure that these are maintained with funding that is a more reliable source, such as
That's
taxation.
probably a question for Sarah.
I love Sarah. She's great. So the tourism coming in, if there's...
You want to answer that, Sarah?
Sarah Tolliver. I'm the CEO and president of Visit Ogden.
So Sarah, if they want to buy a hat, do they buy
I was going to comment on the hats. They're not just a hat. They're a sesquicentennial commemorative hat that comes from the Champagne Toast photo, historic photo of the meeting of the rails. So they're all numbered and custom made. Get yours today. And I know where you can. So when it comes to the infrastructure funding, that's oh gosh, what did I do?
That was my fault, sorry.
Sorry.
That doesn't work anyway, so
Just set it down.
Just set it down.
No,
It does work. It
does.
does. It does work. Okay.
that goes to him.
Creating problems here. Let's go. So it's a bigger question that's hard to answer in a one quick moment. I would just say that there are a number of events that happen in the community that are events come about in a number of different ways is maybe a better way to say that. At Visit Ogden, we do represent the entire county in our tourism efforts, and part of our job is to bring visitors, obviously, into our community, and then help recognize the positive impacts of that. So events is a piece of that. But we try to make sure that we're monitoring that the events that we're bringing into the community have enough of a significant positive economic impact on the community that it outweighs the negative effects that we know sometimes come with traffic congestion or other challenges associated with the events. So, it may not be something that you see back in your pocket right after that event. But tourism in the state of Utah saves every household $1,375 in tax relief. They don't have to pay because our visitors are paying it. And so these events that we're bringing in, and we also work on meetings and conventions and skiers and other leisure travelers, and there's a whole gamut of things. But we want to make sure have that positive impact on our community. We all live here too. And so with that, we try to make sure, a really positive favorite one of the Valley residents is the Masters USA cycling events that we hosted. We hosted 2 years of a collegiate championship event race, which did cause some pretty significant impacts on the Valley. Those were stepping stone races to get the Masters race, which had very positive impacts as far as that economic dollars generated. Then we decided to take a break. We knew that we had had 4 years of cycling events in the Valley. It was enough. We had tested the patience of our Valley residents, and it was time to move on to other things that weren't so impactful. We can't control the local organizers or the other people who come in from out of the area, and right now Scott really doesn't have a means to not permit an event. And it's something that we've talked through at great length. We've created event evaluation forms that a number of agencies review, so that we can make sure if an event comes and there is a problem, we're all documenting it, we're all aware of it, so that in the future there's a reason or a way to help them improve or not permit that event. So there's a number of processes that take place, and so sorry, it's a really long-winded answer, but
I'll just say, like, I work in travel, I love tourism, so I'm not saying no. I'm just saying, like, I would love to know that, and I know that it impacts businesses, and I love that it's helping tax dollars, but I'd love to see, like, okay, for every hotel dollar spent, some percentage of that maintains our trail system, not because I think those events are harming our trail system, but I just think that we want to grow, maintain, and become that destination just long term. And if it's by private funding, because how I understand it, that like Weber Pathways is mainly in charge of growing our trail system. Like for instance, having the trail around the dam would be amazing and be great for tourism and for local usage. I guess just making sure that we have funds that are not just private that help maintain these over time. So love tourism, love that they bring in funds. More so just kind of the strategy of how, I don't know if it's even your department, it's maybe more theirs, that they just have some things in place to maintain these trails, not from just private funding.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. So, you know, it's interesting. When I first became a legislator, that figure was $650 a year of our taxes that tourism paid. And now it's $1,375, so it's more than double. It's pretty good. Yes, sir.
My name's Dan Davis. Some of you may remember Jack Davis. He's a longtime politician, doctor, rancher, and doctor, everything else. Anyway, I'm a full-time resident, but I've been a part-time, a part-time lifetime resident of Huntsville. One thing with these events, and I absolutely love them. I've run marathons, done these bike races and everything else. But to establish a traffic flow, what was it, 2 years ago, I think, I just went over to Eden to grab some milk and some Rice Krispies. I got trapped. They said it was going to be 2 hours. I didn't bring my tent or my sleeping bag or even a camp chair to hang out for 2 hours. I just wanted to grab something and go home. If we could have a traffic flow to be able to get back home, that would be great. I decided, okay, I'll take the long way. I'll go around the dam. That was blocked. It was blocked going back on the other highway. So if they can just have enough respect for the local people, unfortunately I can't plan my life around every race that comes in, and I still have things to do. And if a simple lane to be able to travel through the town, it would be greatly appreciated, I'm sure, for a lot of locals to be able to manage their lives in, I guess that would be popular. Anyway, I think it'd be pretty simple, and if they need help to organize that, I'd be happy to get with them and make sure that that can be established.
Hey, Scott, you heard that, right? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Janet Wampler. I live in Eden. With regard to the special events, I know we all love them, but one thing that irks me and quite a few people that I speak with is that when they come into the valley, or they come in, I guess, to Ogden, they take place in the valley, but they're not promoting the Valley. And I know that we're part of Ogden, as far as being unincorporated or whatnot. But things like Xterra, for an example, the entire race takes place up here. The social activities take place down in Ogden. But hotels that are advertised for it are Ogden hotels. We have rentals and even hotels up here, believe it or not. All the restaurants that are advertised are in Ogden. If I have to get up at 6 a.m. for an early call time for a race, it'd be great to know that there's a place to stay 100 yards from the race start. And that way money could actually come into the Valley. I know a lot of residents in the Valley feel like we have a lot of events that take place here and use our area, but we don't actually see the income. Our restaurants don't get the people. That's not being advertised that there are restaurants here that they can go to, overnight stay, things like that. So I think in conjunction with what the young lady had said about kind of filtering some money to maintain our property, I just would like to see a little bit more representation of our local businesses when it's advertised for all these events. Because I go to all these websites and it's never Valley restaurants or hotels, it's always in Ogden. So it'd be really nice to have that incorporated.
Sarah, you can include those, can't you? If you know what they are.
We know what they are, and the majority of the time they are included. We don't always have control over how an event markets itself. So the promotion that we do, we continually do Ogden Valley blogs and information to promote. Frankly, I want more tourism infrastructure in the Valley so that we have a reason for people to come up here and stay. So the restaurants that are here, the lodging that we do have, all of those pieces are promoted in whatever way we have the capability.
Okay, I'll keep looking because I haven't seen it yet.
I'll send you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
With her.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for being here and bringing this to us. I'm Sally Lindsay. I live outside of Huntsville. I've been here for a long time. I hear often the complaint that we should share the wealth of all of these activities. There aren't any, I mean, look at this list. Let's have some out west when it's cool and the bugs aren't bothering anybody. Let's have some in the East Benches. You've got roads. You can have all kinds of marathons and never close a road. Share the burden. I can't see any reason why we don't do that. It's always up here. This list goes on forever, and it's always up here. There are good places in all of our area to have activities, bike races, all kinds of things. Sure, they'd rather be up here, but we have to bear the burden, and we have one road. And I really like the idea of a road going in one direction for events when you're going to close the highways. At any rate, let's see if we can't try to do something about that, because it's really overwhelming. It's not fair. We pay more taxes than anybody else in the county, and more events and more infrastructure problems happen up here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sally.
Mary, you're gonna have to move that mic back around. She accidentally bumped it. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. I would agree with everything I've heard tonight. You know, one thing that I haven't heard, though, is what's really, really important is nonprofits. You know, I haven't heard that at all. There's a lot of events up here. Commissioner Floor said, you know, we have something special up here at your opening. We really do. I mean, that's why it attracts people to come up here and they want to be a part of it. You know, I do support outdoor activities and all that stuff, but the main reason why, you know, I started the Huntsville Marathon was because I wanted to give back to other nonprofits in the Ogden Valley. And I think that's really, really important. So if you do have to weed through your list, I would ask that you consider nonprofits to be very important. Thank you.
Mayor, while we've got you there, could you either confirm or deny the rumor that the Huntsville Parade on 7/4 is going to be held or not held? Since there's a question mark behind there, I think we'd like to hear the official word. And since we have the paper here, I think
We've heard a lot that, why did Huntsville cancel the 4th of July? We did not cancel the 4th of July.
I think the date's still going to come, right?
Yeah, so what we're doing is, to be real honest with you, it's hard to get the volunteers. You know, people for years, families and stuff up here in the Ogden Valley and in Huntsville have donated their 4th of July to serve as a volunteer. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to cut back just a little bit. The Saturday before, and Wendy, correct me if I'm wrong at any time, the Saturday before the 4th of July, we're having everything. We're having, you know, the fun run, we're having the parade, we're having the flyover, we're having, you know, everything that we had up to about 2 o'clock. And then we're going to, you know, shut it down. The 4th of July, we're still going to have, you know, like the DJ come in a couple hours before and play music, and then we're going to shoot off wonderful fireworks on the 4th of July.
Correct.
So the fireworks will be on the 4th of July. The Saturday prior will be all the other activities before 2 o'clock.
And that's great. And I, you know, I'm old, and but I remember, you know, 50 years ago when we go into, and the whole city, basically the Upper Valley was right here across in the park. We have little rodeo grounds there, and it was a local event. We were, unfortunately, you were too successful in promoting that breakfast and everything else that changed that really changed the venue.
Yeah, we'll have the breakfast and everything, but it'll be on the Saturday prior to, and it's really spun out of control, commissioners. It's hard. We get, you know, 5,000 to 8,000 people up here, and we don't have the volunteers to support it. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. We have one more. 2 more. I didn't see you back there, sorry.
Okay. Jan Fulmer, I live in Eden. Regarding the events up here in the valley, I think what my predecessors have talked about, it's true. I refer to our valley as the recreation gem of Weber County, and we want to make sure it stays that way. In the future, I am hoping that perhaps when there are events that come through this valley, there may be some type of additional fee that can be collected from these event organizers that is fed back into Ogden Valley. So we may be able to get more parking areas around the reservoir. The way it stands right now, when we have events like this, there are 2 main opportunities the residents have. Number 1 is to clean up the trash, and number 2 is to upright the porta potties when they get blown over. And the last is not the greatest opportunity in the world. So please, gentlemen, commissioners, please think about it. You want to preserve this valley because it's a source of revenue for the county, and it is a recreation gem. Many counties come here. So for future events, please, I don't know if you call it a surcharge, an Ogden Valley use charge, just something that additional funds can be collected for each contestant, and then that money get fed back to Ogden Valley. Okay.
Thank you. And we will actually talk about that a little bit later.
Hi, my name is Melissa Harrison.
Hi there.
And I recently joined the Weber Pathways Board, but I'm not speaking for the Weber Pathways Board. And I really agree with what Jan just said. Our problem is the population along the Wasatch Front is just going to continue to grow. And whether we like it or not, we have a lot of open space up here, and people love to come here. There are fewer and fewer spots for people to go and ride their bikes and be on lakes. And so I do feel like it's at a critical time that we get some direct funding to help support the infrastructure. Right now, it seems like we're fundraising on Weber Pathways for, you know, what I feel is a sidewalk, and to put in these pathways and to put in restroom facilities and try and stay ahead of the development is really critical. And I think with some smart planning and trying to get ahead of this, we can make it a nice place to live and for people to continue to come, because they're coming. So we just need to prepare for it and be smart about it.
Where would you put that money?
As far as?
Yeah, if we were to collect extra $1 from every participant, where would you use it?
I would pass. I think putting in pathways all over so that people can bike and get around. I think we need restroom facilities. Parking is going to be, you know, at Art Nord, you're already seeing that's a big problem. And it's already kind of becoming at a critical level, I feel like. But you know, how to limit how many boats we're gonna have on that lake. There's a lot of things that are brewing that, you know, it was a shame with Trappers Loop that they didn't, that UDOT didn't, they made that less safe than more safe. And so some of this is a state problem that we need, you know, to address at that level. But it's a great place, and we're all here to protect it. So
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. So I want to thank the mayor. He's leaving. Thanks for being here tonight, Mayor.
And I apologize. If you live in Huntsville City and you're interested in CERT, Jim's your man. I'm just throwing him under the bus. He's Huntsville City.
There you go. So, you know, it's interesting when you talk about who uses the Upper Valley here. When it comes to skiing and the dam, #1 users are Davis County. And you say, okay, well, who's the #2 users? And certainly that'd be Weaver County. No, that's Salt Lake County. We're 3rd. So the other counties use the dam and ski up here a lot. All right. Next item up is an update on the library capital plan and a request for authorization for funding for the capital projects. Linda Winsgard. Thank you, Linda, for allowing us to be here tonight.
It's a pleasure to be here. Appreciate the opportunity to be on the agenda, and especially in the Valley where I grew up. I was thinking when they talked about the 4th of July, how I grew up on a farm. We had horses and everything, but on the 4th of July, I can remember coming to the town square and paying a dime over and over again to ride a donkey. Money I had to earn by getting up and picking strawberries at daylight, you know, but there was always something amazing here for us to do as kids, and it's a great tradition, something nice to look back on.
So you have horses on the farm, and you'd come here and pay a dime to get on a donkey.
Yeah, you can imagine what my father thought of that. If we earned it, we could spend it. And we got smarter as we got older, I think. Anyway, I want to, as I said, thank you for the opportunity to update you on the Library Board's 5-year capital facilities plan and propose that a portion of the project savings be authorized for additional capital improvements and enhancements designed almost exclusively for this facility here at the Ogden Valley branch. You'll recall that in 2011, 12, and 13, the Library Board honed a 5-year capital plan for which they sought funding to bring 4 libraries in the county up to the standard of the Pleasant Valley branch, which is in Washington Terrace, and it just opened in 2009. And after several community meetings and public hearings, commissioners agreed to allow the board to put the capital plan to a vote. However, the total amount needed to fund the entire plan was reduced by 10%, and this reduction eliminated the entire contingency fund for the 4 projects. Well, in the first vote by mail election held in the county, the public approved the funding for the 5-year plan based upon the concept that Weber County's libraries would serve as lifelong education centers and community gathering spaces rather than simply as book depositories. And in order to accommodate the loss of contingency funds, several capital improvements at the Ogden Valley branch, along with a number of desired building design elements at headquarters, were not considered. They were eliminated. The action was taken in order to ensure that these first 2 projects, the Ogden Valley branch and the New Southwest branch headquarters in Roy, did not consume so much funding up front that there would not be enough funding later to complete the renovation of the main library on the North Branch. Well, I'm happy to report tonight that as of January 1st, 2018, last year, it was anticipated that all 4 projects would be completed by mid-year with a budget surplus. The Library Board requested at that time permission to use a portion of the savings to address items that were omitted during the scope of work curtailment of the first 2 projects here at Ogden Valley branch and Southwest branch. And on January 23rd of last year, Commissioners authorized the board to proceed with the installation of a lightning protection system on the southwest branch, and then to enter into a contract for construction of a new wastewater system to be located here in this facility. Well, as of April 1st of this year, just a few days ago, it was projected that all the projects, including those authorized by the commissioners last year, the lightning and the wastewater treatment system, would be completed with a sizable savings of more than $1 million. The point of sharing this history is to report that all of the county library capital projects approved by the voters in 2013 were finished on time and considerably under budget. With this background and projected savings in mind, I'm requesting your authorization to proceed on a number of additional capital improvements here at the Ogden Valley branch and one at the Southwest branch library headquarters. And I'm asking that they be paid for with funding still available in the general obligation bond account. These proposed uses have been reviewed and approved as appropriate by the county's bond and legal counsel. The first of these projects, very briefly, and I know that there was a handout distributed here with these projects listed. The very first project was funding to landscape the west side of the property out here and to make that into an area that's really a nice gathering place for the community, and perhaps an outdoor performance space. It'd be a place to host community programs, children's activities, or maybe just to sit outside in the shade and read a book. This area was traditionally used by the state of Utah as a shops area, and so a lot of sand and salt and so forth was stockpiled there, so there could be some expense in terms of mediating those substances. The second project is to create a clean server room. The building opened in 1996, and as you might guess, designed a year or two before that, without much infrastructure for the kinds of services that public libraries provide today, certainly not with the kinds of infrastructure that you see in the county's other 4 libraries. The request is for the modification of the facility to include a small server room and to make it code compliant. Right now, the equipment that we've stuffed into an electrical closet is sitting in front of the breaker boxes, and it's really not something that is code compliant or safe. Other potential proposed upgrades including, in addition to the server room, includes replacing some metal halide lights that are an issue in the building. They have produced a lot of heat. It's getting hard to get parts for them, and they run on ballasts that are hard to find. They're going to be out of date here soon. Would include replacing some floor boxes and some other electrical facility upgrades that would address areas where the building is woefully inadequate. The fourth requested upgrades includes replacing the Warren circulation desk, some additional millwork and hinges. The circulation desk out there, if you take a look at it, has been cut up several times as equipment's been moved in and out. The surface is worn thin after 4 million books have been checked in and out of this facility. It would also provide some funding to put some tempered glass in an area where the children are jumping through an opening in a wall and creating some havoc for the library staff, and perhaps the potential for injury as they dive through that from one side to the other, and then replacing some double-pane windows. The next project is to replace some floor covering. The floor coverings in here, the carpets are 23 years old, and as you walk through the facility in the high-traffic areas, you can see they're stained and the seams are coming apart, and there's a need for some replacement. We're looking at refinishing and painting the exterior wood and metal surfaces of the building up in the eaves and rafters and braces and so forth. That metal is starting to get pot marked and rust. And of course, that's the infrastructure for the facility. If we can clean that up and paint it, it should last at least another decade. It's been about a decade since it was last painted. The next item is seal coating, then striping the parking areas here, but also at the southwest branch. The asphalt for this facility out on the street was laid in 2013, at the southwest branch 2014. We try to reseal them and stripe them every 5 years because it's a good investment to take care of the asphalt itself. I'm going to close by noting that that time is of the essence for these projects. All bond funding must be cleared from the books September 1, 2019. You've seen the cost estimates that were handed around that were thumbnails produced by the staff in-house. These are thumbnails just for construction, I have to say. It doesn't include any engineer seals for electrical or for civil engineering and so forth. It doesn't include contractors, profit and overhead, but it gives you some idea of the direction the projects are going and what the final cost might be. As I said, I'm working on professional cost estimates, and as soon as I have solid numbers, I'll pass them along to commissioners. I'm also in the process of preparing a summary of moving costs that were billed to the library operating budget for work employees did in handling and moving the collections while the main library, North Branch, and headquarters library were either remodeled or built. The staff moved more than 4 million pounds of materials over the course of those reconstruction projects. And so the bond funding can reimburse the operating budget for that. When all of this is completed, it's anticipated that there will still be a balance of more than $1 million in this general obligation bond fund. So that's my brief overview. I thank you for the opportunity to present, and I'm happy to respond to questions if there are any.
Linda, the question I have, the very next item is a contract between Weber County and Saunders Construction for the Ogden Valley Library. Does that tie into the funds you were just talking about?
No, those funds have already been approved by a previous commission. The project has been designed, bid, and we're ready to enter into a contract to begin putting that waste treatment facility in place.
So the funds you're talking about in this presentation are those you presented to us the other day that were approximately $400,000?
Approximately,
Yeah.
yes. Again, without the contractor's profit and overhead and some of those other numbers that I'm not in a position to estimate because it all depends on, you know, these are small projects. There's no economy of scale, and there will not be a lot of bidders. So I don't want to misrepresent the fact that the numbers that I've provided are thumbnails just of the materials primarily, and some labor to put them together, but not overhead and profit redesign and so forth.
You'll get us cost numbers.
Pardon me?
You'll be getting us cost numbers
Yes,
in the next couple
they're
weeks.
underway right now.
Okay, thank you.
So Commissioner Ford, since there's only two of us tonight, a motion to pass this for her to spend $400,000 might go.
Well, I think we need to see the final numbers first, though.
I don't think we need to. I think we can give her the right to go ahead and do that.
Not to exceed?
Exactly.
I think it's, unless we change the scope of this, it's likely to exceed $400,000.
How much?
I think it'll exceed up by, I think it'll be $450,000.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion.
Okay.
That we approve the request as discussed by Ms. Waisgard for the improvements she discussed not to exceed $450,000.
Okay. I think I'd second that, then we just won't tell Harvey about it.
That's what he gets for being on vacation.
That's right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. There you go, Linda.
Thank you.
All right.
Want me to stay right here?
Yeah, you got one more to explain. We're on action items now.
Did you have somebody else who wanted to talk to that issue?
I was just gonna support her, but you passed it.
You
so
passed it.
fabulous.
It's a done deal.
Yeah.
Kathleen Yes. Jensen.
Don't talk, we could revote it.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
right.
I'm on the board, and there are 4 wonderful libraries that have been brought up to code, and we need to be. We're 23 years old, and we need to be brought up to
You bet.
code too.
That's good.
And we have
you,
the money.
Kathy, you're a big part of making that happen too.
All right, Linda, go ahead and talk to us about action item 1 with Weaver County and Saunders Construction.
Okay, Commissioners, as I noted, last year Commissioners approved funding for site and utility improvements. It was primarily replacing a septic system and drain field that have been failing over the past several years. We pump the tank regularly. In fact, we had to pump it for this meeting, so we didn't have to issue 3-buckle boots as people arrived. The contract before you this evening is in the amount of $167,984, and it's been reviewed and approved by legal counsel and is being recommended to you by the library board. County purchasing agent competitively bid the project, and Sanders Construction was the low bidder. The proposed contractor, design, and civil engineering team and the library staff have reviewed and verified every line item in Saunders' response to the scope of work as detailed in the original specifications. And we also worked every line item by way of a post-bid addendum, and we're convinced we're recommending a wastewater treatment system that has enough size and redundancy to carry the library for many decades to come. The project is really more, however, than simply installing a larger septic tank. It requires construction of a new effluent pumping station and a much improved and larger absorption field that will be relocated from the east side of the building to the west side of the property. The system will be installed with a valve so that the flow can be directed to the new absorption field while the property on the east rests, and then if there's an issue in the future, the valve can be changed and we can go back and forth between the 2 fields, ensuring that we don't have future issues and that we get the value of the public's investment in both of those absorption fields. Because of the porous nature of the soils, the engineering standards call for the new lines to be just 12 inches below ground, providing an additional medium for filtering the wastewater. Since the drains on the interior of the building are several feet deep, or several feet below the ground, it does require some electrical modifications to the supply lines to add a pumping station on the east side of the building. The project requires replacing a significant amount of concrete on 3 sides of the building, and as I said, a larger tank, pumping station, effluent, and drain lines. The Health Department has issued a permit to construct the wastewater treatment system, and Huntsville Town Planning Commission has issued their land use permit. The contract allows Saunders Construction 90 days to reach substantial completion of the work. Our intent, if you approve the contract this evening, is to immediately provide the contractor with a notice to proceed, as the general obligation bond funding for this project needs to be dispersed by August 15th.
And what's the total of that bid?
The total of that bid is $167,984.
Very good. Questions, Commissioner?
Linda, so did the east side drain field fail, or you're just
Yes.
taking?
It's been failing for years.
Okay.
And it's completely saturated. And we've worked on it. We've done a number of what we thought would be short-term fixes, and they were good short-term fixes. But after having a civil engineer and others look at the field, they recommended that we move it to the other side. There's limited space out front, really. And when you look at the size of the drain field compared to the use of the facility, it probably is not, even if we put a new drain field there, it probably would not be adequate.
Yeah, I agree, it has to go west.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion.
Yes.
Motion to approve the contract by and between Weber County and Saunders Construction for site and utility improvements at the Ogden Valley Library Branch in the amount of $167,984.
Good, there's a motion, and I will second it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, it passes. Very good, thanks, Linda.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, next up is a request for interlocal agreements by and between Weber County and all these people I'm going to read for election services. Bonavista Vista Water Improvement District, Far West City, Harrisville City, Huntsville City, Hooper Water Improvement District, Marietta Slaterville, North Ogden City, Northview Fire District, Ogden City, Plain City, Pleasant View City, Riverdale City, Roy City, South Ogden City, Taylor West Weber Water Improvement District, Uinta Highlands, Uinta City, Washington Terrace City, Weber Fire District, West Haven City, and Wolf Creek Water and Sewer Improvement District. Ryan Kelly.
Good evening, Commissioners. That was quite a mouthful.
Yeah.
So what you have before you is just a standard agreement similar to what we've done in the past. Within Weber County, we have 15 municipalities, and there are 7 special districts that contract with us to do the elections. And really what this does is allows us to bring it all under one umbrella so that people get one ballot and have a standardized way of voting from year to year. And we really do have a great partnership and a good relationship with our cities. I know I saw Becky, who's the new town clerk here in Huntsville, just a few minutes ago, and Wolf Creek Water that's up here as well. But like I said, it really is a service, I think, to do this all together, to utilize the resources and the expertise that we have in Weber County in order to provide this service to all of those residents. And this comes basically, what we charge is $1.80 per active registered voter that we mail a ballot to. With the fall, we do have the form of government change question that will be on the ballot, so we'll split the cost with those entities. But really for $1.80, I feel like that's a really good value for them and for the county as well.
Thanks, Ryan. Commissioner, any questions?
No, I'd make a motion to approve the interlocal agreements between Weber County and all those cities named on action item H3. I'm not going to read them all.
I don't blame you. And I will second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It passes. Thanks, Ryan. You know, Ryan, he runs the county election system, and when you look at Utah County that last year had people walking away because it took 4 and 5 hours to vote, and our system went just like that. And that's because of Ryan. He did a great job for us, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, no question. Ryan runs a great operation down there with his crew. Deserves all of our thanks from the county.
You bet. All right, item number 4 is a request for approval of right-of-way contracts between Weber County and C.J. Saunders and Dusty Sanders for the purchase of property on 3300 South. Mr. Gary Myers.
Gentlemen, appreciate your time tonight. As we've talked in the past, we're in the purchase of preserving the right-of-way corridor for 3300 South. Tonight, I'd like to present for your approval the contract for J.C. Sanders and Dusty Sanders. It is for the amount of $86,000 even.
Very good.
Any questions?
Questions, Commissioner? I have none.
Okay.
No, I'm good. Motion to approve the right-of-way contract between Weber County and J.C. Saunders and Dusty Saunders for the purchase of property located on 3300 South, Weber County, the amount of $86,000.
Very good. That's the motion. I will second that motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It
Thanks,
passes.
gentlemen.
Thank you, Gary. Next item is a discussion on fire mitigation between Weber, in Weber County for the Weber Fire District. Captain Rick Cooper.
Good evening, Commissioners. How are you tonight?
Good. There are times where you're the most popular guy in the room.
You know, I find that, yes, I am also the most hated person in this room at
Depending on
times.
some of those
It
times,
depends
that's
on
true,
who
too.
and what is going on in the county at this time.
That's true.
I don't think wildland fire will be a huge issue early on. I think flooding and water will be our problem, but I think we're going to turn into a fire season later in the season. So,
You know, when you have wet springs like this, it brings all the grasses out.
that is very correct, Commissioner. We are looking at an average startup year, but we're looking at a bumper crop of grass, and they are indicating that we could see an increase in monsoonal flow, which will bring dry lightning. So we'll wait to see what happens in the future. Commissioner Harvey asked me to just brief you guys up on our mitigation efforts in on the unincorporated areas of Weber County. Primarily our focus right now on wildland fire mitigation is the Upper Valley. It does hold the largest concentration of wildland fire risk assessment and threat. And we have we have a lot of values at risk. So Weber Fire District has assigned me as the wildland captain for Weber Fire District. So that is my job, is to identify risk and threat areas and try to reduce the effects of a wildland fire to communities. So I'm just going to kind of give you a brief overview. Currently we have 7 projects that we are working on in the Upper Valley at this time. Been working with the Weber Wildlife Federation and the gun range to come up with recommendations from the fire district, not requirements, but recommendations. We cannot impose any type of requirements on private property. We can only give recommendations, and we're going to continue that mitigation efforts with the Weber Wildlife Federation to reduce those risks. Other communities that we've been actively pursuing mitigation work in is Pineview Estates, and we've actively been in Pineview Estates now for 5 seasons since I've taken over the position. Nordic Valley is another one we've been actively pursuing mitigation work in for the last 3 seasons, and we're making some very good progress in both areas. Sunridge is a newcomer to a large mitigation work. With our response time with suppression resources is well over our 30-minute mark, just based on where it is. So our efforts up there have been extraordinary, and the HOA itself has been awesome to work with. They are very eager to do whatever they need to do to protect their community from an event of a wildland fire. I'm not talking about something that's going to start in Sunridge. I'm thinking something that's going to start down here at Middle Fork and burn into Sunridge is our threat. So that's why we're working very aggressively up there.
The Sunridge area is tough. I was a senator when that burnt before up in there.
Yep.
And I was up in there the days they were fighting that. And that becomes overwhelming when those fires and the winds are blowing and there's literally a wall of fire heading towards these different homes, and some are cabins and some are trailers. It's a pretty tough issue.
It is an extremely tough issue, and as Weber County continues to grow, our wildland-urban interface will continue to grow, and our risk will continue to progress upward.
So do we require them to have a certain circle that's clean around these houses? Because when I was up there before, that seemed to be the biggest issue. If they had enough mitigated area around their structure, they were pretty safe. And if they didn't, they were gone like that.
That's what we're pushing right now, is what we call defensible spacing around each structure. And we look at initially our 30-foot zone with vegetation free, and then we look at a 50 and then a 100-foot zone around their structures. And what we're really looking for is to reduce the effects of a fire against the structure. I'll never guarantee we'll save your home on anything that we do because there's too many environmental factors, but that's what we're really encouraging for, is that 30-foot mitigation rule.
Do we require anything by the county? Do any of our ordinances require anything there?
Yes, we do. There is a building ordinance. We did adopt the WUI code I do believe in 2008. The state legislation adopted it I do believe in 2007. And there has been several upgrades since then. But Weber Fire District, myself, work for Weber Fire and our fire marshal are actively enforcing that WUI code to its fullest extent.
What is that?
The WUI code, it's a book about yay thick.
Yeah, but the defensible space.
30 feet.
30 feet, that's
30 feet.
all, huh?
That's what we recommend, is 30 feet. Wow. But what we're actually working in right now, Commissioner, is homes that were built prior to the ordinance being passed.
All right.
So that's kind of where we're sitting at right now. and I can give you more updates as we move on.
Very good, thank you very much. That's a great report.
Captain, hold on one second, I've got a question for you.
Go ahead, Gage.
Absolutely.
So we've had some discussion just recently about the possibility of adding or putting in 6 fire hydrants in Ogden Canyon.
Yes.
Give me your opinion as far as the potential impact of a fire in one of those subdivisions in the canyon, as well as the surrounding forest area, grass area, et cetera. Is that, do you think fire hydrants in the canyon would help mitigate some of the fire hazard we see, or help in case there was a fire in there or not? Based upon what we have right now, which is basically pumper trucks or pumped out of the river.
Oh, absolutely. Those hydrants would be more than beneficial. I've been with Weber Fire District now for 16 years, and I've had 4 structure fires and I don't know how many grass fires in the canyon, and water has always been an issue. I know we could have saved at least 2 of the structures if we'd had adequate water supply in the canyon. The one was several years ago. Last summer on July 30th, I had a 7-acre fire at the mouth of the canyon, and we were having to draft out of the river, which takes an extended period of time and manpower to get that drafting operation going. I actually dispatched a helicopter to start dipping out of a pond to suppress the fire before it got into the Perry camp. So those hydrants will be a blessing to us for suppression operations.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Captain. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to express anything to Captain Cooper? How come you applaud him and you didn't applaud any of us?
Like I said, I'm the hero right now.
Just wait.
I just have a question. Part of the problem is fuel.
State your name again.
Oh, Dan Davis. Part of the problem is the available fuel. And we watched the fires in California, how incredibly devastating they were, burning houses and burning people and everything else. My family controls about a section of land there at the mouth of South Fork. Are there funds available to assist in fencing to be able to allow to get grazing up there, either cattle or horses? We don't want to do sheep, that's way too difficult. To be able to, and taking into consideration the carrying capacity of the wildlife and everything, to be able to get up there and control some of the foliage, graze it down so there isn't as much fuel to be able to burn. When I was up there last summer, I dared not even chip my foot on a rock for fear, because it would have just gone right up over into Middle Fork and into the developments there. So I was just wondering if there are any funds available that to help for fencing, put some grazing, help eliminate some of the fuel that would burn if anything were to start. Any county, state, or anything else?
Well, there is some federal funding. It's through the National Fire Plan, but the funds, we actually have to put in a larger grant, so we can't do one specific grant for your property and go abroad section.
No, I'm just saying, any coordination with other people,
Yeah.
so that we can eliminate some of the fuel anyway, so it's just not such a, I mean, the only thing worse would be 5 gallons of gasoline.
Oh, absolutely, and I agree with you. We've done some cattle grazing in the past in Weber County in the Causey Estates area. We have had some degree of success with it. The problem with that, we only usually get a 1-year grant for cattle grazing, and then that grass is an annual. It's going to grow back next spring.
Right.
So we get a 1-year treatment out of it, and then the next year the funding most likely would be there. We got a 1-year grant for Causey Estates. Very good success, but we're right back to where we were before. My suggestion to you is to get a hold of me. We can come up and do an assessment of your property, and we can give you ideas on your property that you can mitigate yourself.
Yeah,
and that's kind of what we're looking for, is the public to defend your own homes, to defend your property. And where we only have so many resources in the county, so it's a triage thing, and I don't want to take up any more time, but we only have so many resources, so we really try to reach out to the public to educate you on mitigation efforts to protect your property.
The only thing I accept is if it burned all the tires woke.
That would be fine, and we can maybe help you with that.
Thank you very much. Minister Douglas Dixon, did you have a comment you wanted to make?
No, we just clap.
Oh, okay. That's good.
He's a clapper.
That's good. All right, next up is item number 7, request for approval of contracts Pineview to Weber County and Base Camp DBA Utah Recreation Company regarding Pineview Reservoir. Holland Wilbanks.
Oh, I'm so excited it's my turn.
Thank you for your patience.
Well, I'm excited because a lot of the conversation we've had tonight has been around generating some revenue that can stay in the valley. And upon approval of this contract, it does that exact thing specifically to the Pineview area. I'm not seeing a...
Pointer?
Yeah, did it fall off when...
Just come up, stand, and point.
Well, and actually, that's actually a great idea because there's the map, the next few slides are really just maps to show exactly where the changes are. So if you want to flip through and everybody can hear me, I'm happy to do that. Does that work?
You've got a flipper there, or a clicker? There you go.
There you go.
Great. I'll do it this way. Does it have a pointer on it too?
The ones.
I can.
Okay. So let's just do this real quickly. So before I present this contract, I did want to give a little brief history about how we got here because this has been a lot of work from a lot of different organizations in the making over a number of years, and I'm really excited to see the progress that we've made over the years. First of all, the partnerships between Weber County, our Sheriff's Department, the U.S. Forest Service, the Division of Wildlife Resources, and then this informal citizen group has been really important and influential in a lot of the decisions and changes that have come into place over the last few years. So if you'll flip to the map, so obviously you guys are real familiar with the area. In 2016, we instated the nightly anchor permit, which was a $15 fee if you wanted to spend the night past 10 o'clock into the next day on the reservoir. That allowed us to put law enforcement on the reservoir 3 nights a week from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. And that was done from, first and foremost, a safety issue. We had a number of incidences during the night, and we didn't have law enforcement there readily available to address those. And also from numerous complaints from citizens in the area that we needed noise control and just issues throughout the night. So that was put in place in 2016, and we've seen a lot of success, and that permit has allowed the reservoir or a revenue stream to put law enforcement on the reservoir at night. In 2017, and you can just leave the same map up. In 2017, we added no parking signs. And Gage, if you might want to hop up and show them right where Pelican Beach is, over on this side off of 7100 East.
Up on me.
This might, I know. Here, I can go through it up here. Yeah.
Up in here.
So we've provided no parking signs in this area. This is a high-speed road right here, and as it was, a number of vehicles were parking up in residential homes and all through here and along this roadway, accessing this area of the reservoir, which was incredibly unsafe. So it is now a tollway zone and a no parking zone, and I would just encourage no one to park there. They probably won't come back to their car, or at least there will be a heavy fine placed on your car for parking in this area. That was put in place in 2017. In 2018, which was last summer, we instated a no alcohol ban on the beaches. And that was a big success in safety regulations for our law enforcement and came directly from requests from our citizens to make that change. So any of the beaches around Pineview and Causey are now alcohol-free. Finally, this year, and we'll just flip back and forth between the two maps, we can stick here first. So this year, your commissioners here approved a restricted account for Pineview and Causey area. So funds that we generate from users at Pineview and Causey go directly into this restricted account. And what's exciting about this restricted account is the restriction is that it can only be used for improvements back in these areas. So you'll see the contract that I'm requesting tonight will be funds to generate that revenue stream to go directly into that restricted account that goes back into the area. Some of the things we've worked with the Forest Service, along with the no parking that you'll see this year is, I have to go back to my notes, but they're adding some more wakeless buoy areas near the swim area. Pelican Beach parking lot will be expanded this year, which is this one, so you'll see more parking area right there. And then Port Ramp, you've seen on-street parking outside of Port Ramp. That will be eliminated this year as well, as part of things that the Forest Service is doing for us. One other thing that I failed to mention, if you'll flip to the COSI map, we did last year add no parking on the dam. That was actually a Homeland Security issue, and it's just kind of a fun fact. Those no parking signs had to be at a lower level because that's where we land the helicopters in emergency situations. And there were times we could not get our emergency vehicles in because there was so much congestion to access the areas where those incidents happened. So you can see over the last few years we've had a lot of change and a lot of positive things. And these were all done in an effort to preserve the asset, protect the asset, and still make a very enjoyable experience as a user and recreator. Not just a boater, but a beach goer, an equestrian, a trail user, an angler. Since these are both Forest Service assets, they're for all public use, and so that's been very important that we keep all the users in mind. So that gives you a little history. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Holland?
Yes, ma'am.
One question. Could you clarify again, where do you get the revenue that you then put back into this area, and how much have you gotten?
Okay, so that's the contract I'm asking for approval for tonight. Thank you, Ms. Fulmer, I appreciate that. So what the contract that the commissioners have in front of you tonight is with the new concessionaire. The U.S. Forest Service hired Base Camp, doing business as Utah Recreation Service, to take the place of ALNL. So that will be your new concessionaire for at least the next 5 years. We have contracted or requesting the approval for this contract with Base Camp, which would provide an additional $3 fee if you access Cemetery Point, Anderson Cove, or Port Ramp. So you'd pay the fee that the concessionaire already has in place, plus there'd be an additional $3 fees. Those $3, if you access Anderson Cove or Port Ramp, would go directly into that restricted account for the county. The $3 fees collected at Cemetery Point would go directly back into Huntsville town and improvements along their roadways to access that road. So that is essentially the contract. It is in place for this year so that we can take a look and see what kind of revenues we collect over this next year, and then reassess how we can do better and continue to improve the revenues so that we can put it right back into the asset.
You have a question back there?
Hey, hold on a second. So you've got to come up here to ask it and state your name in the mic. Holland, were you done?
I'll have one more thing
Okay.
after you.
Go ahead.
My question was to Holland. I'm Carol Campbell. I'm from Huntsville. And my question is, how does that not then drive everybody to Pelican Beach where they don't have to pay? Which is already really congested.
Sure. That's a great question. So the reason that we can charge fees in these areas, and this is a mandate from the Forest Service, is that there has to be an improvement in the area, an improvement meaning a boat ramp, a restroom, maintained picnic areas, in order for the Forest Service to be a fee allowed to be assessed. So Middle Inlet, Cemetery Point, Anderson Cove, and Port Ramp are those 4 areas around the reservoir. So at this point, we cannot collect revenue or additional fees from Pelican Beach, from North Arm, or from Windsurfer Beach. However, with that said, we are working on a plan long-term to be able to do that. We just have to have the improvements in place, which this revenue stream would help do that.
So we tried this year in our negotiations with them to get Pelican Beach included, and they would not include that. They just refused to do it. So that will happen in the future. It's just not going to be this year.
But Holland clarified that we will be doing parking enforcement in the Pelican Beach area and those other areas you mentioned as well.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
There won't be fees, but we will be doing parking enforcement, which would include towing and fines.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
We have a question by Randall.
Yeah, I have a question that I suspect may be on many people's minds. We're residents. Can we get some sort of season pass at a reduced rate? It would really make people up here feel like maybe we were loved a little bit and not just used as the recreation destination. Thank you. My name's Miranda Menzies. I'm from Eden.
May I address that as well?
We've talked about that.
So there is a season pass that any user can get. Right, in the past, there was a $30 fee that was in the same category as this $3 fee. So $30 if you bought a season pass. In the past would go back to Huntsville Town. That $30 fee is not in place this year. And we are looking at ways for county residents to never pay that $30 fee as county residents. However, we would encourage that fee to be in place if you are out of county. So since most of our users, or the vast majority of our users, are from Davis, Salt Lake, and surrounding areas, if they purchased a season pass from the booths at anywhere around Pineview Reservoir, that $30 fee would be back in place. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? So as a Weber County resident, you wouldn't be assessed that fee. As an out-of-county resident, you would.
You're saying you can buy it and it's free?
This year, no. This year, there's just no fee at all. What we're looking at going forward is if you're out of county, then you would pay it that extra $30 if you bought a season pass. So if you went in and said, here's my address, here's where I live, I want to buy it, it would be X amount. But if I came in from Davis County, it would be $30 more. That $30 would go into the restricted account.
But you haven't got that for this year?
That's not in place this year. But there is no additional fee this year at all for season pass holders. Yeah.
Very good. Yes, ma'am.
As you are looking, I'm Sally Lindsay, as you are looking at these fees, let's just suppose I live up here, I have 6 drivers. Now that doesn't include younger children. I have 2 in high school, I have 2 at Weber, I have my husband, myself. Maybe my in-laws live with us. So when you are assessing this fee, who gets it? Does my husband get it to go fishing? Do I get it in my car to drive and take the dog for a walk? Do the 2 kids on the track team get it? Do the bikers get it? How are you going to address this? Is that 6 or 8 passes? One won't work because we've got 6 or 8 drivers. It's something to think about. Thank you.
Sally, so let me just say, for those that have brought this up, this is something that we've looked at, discussed with the informal working group with the Forest Service. We haven't, and obviously I'm in favor of giving something similar to what Huntsville does, which would be a pass. If you live in Huntsville, you have access, basically free parking. To be quite honest with you, we haven't been able to come up with the logistics of how this works yet. But
it's tough.
I mean, if you have a great idea and you want to print stickers and go around door to door, I'm happy to talk to you about.
I don't know what you do,
Well,
but it's something that really is an important. We built the pathways.
Yeah.
We've raised the money for the pathways. The pathways have brought everybody here, among other things. So it's a serious problem that doesn't happen to affect.
We hear you.
but
We
it
just
does
need a
affect.
fair and equitable
Yeah.
and manageable way to get there. And I know that Holland and her group will get us there. May not be this year, but we will get there.
Hi.
I have a suggestion based on
You
experience.
guys tell us your name.
Miranda Menzies from Eden. I have a suggestion based on experience in Ohio where Hamilton County Park District, if you look at what Hamilton County Park District does, they have like 30 parks within a very large urban county. And you basically get you can buy as a county resident at a reduced rate a sticker that goes on your car, just like you would for an apartment building in town or a parking garage or whatever. And that means that that acknowledges that vehicle, and I very much doubt that any family is going to have 8 vehicles for their 8 drivers. If they have, then they can afford to buy the sticker full price. So I would suggest you do it on a vehicle basis, not on a person basis. And that way you can buy a sticker that is permanently for that year. It's an annual one. At the end of each year you scrape it off and you put on the new one. They're very durable, and I'm happy to buy one in Hamilton County the next time I'm over there and show you how it works. And everybody in Hamilton County knew this. They were for sale November 30th for the following year. You bought them. It allowed you to drive through park districts that were across roads. So in this case, it would allow you, for example, to establish that the entire valley is the established center, and everybody who lives here has a sticker. And everybody who comes here has to buy a day sticker, and that way is how you control it.
Okay, I like that.
Thank you.
I think these are all great suggestions. I do have to remind everyone that it becomes somewhat complicated when you are working with the Forest Service and with their concessionaire and with any other jurisdiction that might possibly have some say in the Division of Wildlife, the impact of invasive species, and it really, if it's a county park district, then we could walk in and make some decisions like that. So this partnership and this working relationship that we've built with these other entities over the years, we'll be able to get there, but it's not quite as simple as you'd think it could be just like that. So I just think it's important that we all know that this progress has been made pretty well. So with that said, I would ask for approval, and there is one guideline. The terms have all been approved by both entities, both Base Camp and I know you guys have reviewed them. Our legal department has reviewed the contract. It still has to go through the formal county process. So if I'm asking or requesting for approval of this contract pending the process that has to go through the other departments.
You bet. Thank you. Appreciate that
Yeah.
presentation, Holland.
Thanks, Holland.
Commissioner?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I would make a motion to approve the contract between Weber County and Base Camp, DBA Utah Recreation Company, regarding Pine View Reservoir as presented, action item 6. And I would just like to thank Colin for her work on this. This has been a major undertaking. This is a good step in the right direction. It's not perfect by any means, but it's a good step. It's a lot farther than where we were before. I'm a believer in user fees rather than general taxes. This gets us to a user fee basis. I firmly believe that those that use an asset should pay for it, and that we need to come up with a way that those in the valley can enjoy what we've always enjoyed at a reasonable, fair, and equitable, manageable method. So moved.
Very good. I will second that. And on my second, I want to thank you, Holland. You did a good job.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I thank you so much for that. And in hopes that you would approve this, I actually have an op-ed from the 3 Weber County Commissioners that I wanted to make sure that our media got their hands on first and foremost. But then I also brought copies for anybody that's left tonight to read. So this will be, you know, as you saw, the media is just now getting it, but it does describe the year-over-year things that happened, and then the contract that was just approved.
We
just
haven't voted yet.
You said aye. Say aye. Tim Vanderneck has
Motion been
it.
made second.
Don't jinx it.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, Holland, now you're covered. All right, last item on the agenda tonight is item number 8. Contract bind between Weber County and CRS Engineering on 12th Street. Gary Meyer.
Commissioners, one last item for you tonight before we wrap this up. So what I'm asking for your approval on is a contract modification for the 12th Street design. We've kind of talked about this a little bit back and forth. I've gone the rounds questions with all 3 of you commissioners. I guess I would kind of open it up for questions at this point.
I don't have any questions. We've been through this, and we know where Commissioner Harvey is on this. I told him I was going to put it on the agenda tonight. This is holding up work, starting to hold up work on 12th.
That's good.
And this is the final nail in that project. So
that's right.
Yeah, I think we've been through this, spent numerous hours reviewing the contract. I don't think there's any question that that the proper thing to do for the public is to pass this, pay them, get on. We're, as Commissioner Jenkins said, we're in the process now of holding up work. The end result is if we don't approve this, it could end up costing the county substantially more money, which I'm not in favor of. So,
significantly.
You ready for motion? So with that, Mr. Chair, I'd move to approve the modification of the contract between Weber County and CRS Engineers for additional work on 12th Street reconstruction project in the amount of, what was that, $176,000?
Yeah, it's $176,120.
$120.
Very good, and I'd make a second to that motion. Any anything else?
No, good.
Very good. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Fantastic.
It's done, Gary.
Thanks, Commissioner.
All right, Commissioner Farrar, comments?
Well, I think we've been here long enough. This is one of our longest commission meetings, as I remember, for quite a while. I just want to take this time to thank all the members, friends and neighbors from the valley that have taken time, and also those from the county that have come up to Ogden Valley to be with us this evening. I think this is a great signification of what it means for the public to come out and have input in these public meetings. And we can't, as county commissioners, can't make good decisions without input. We've heard it quite a bit tonight. And with your input, I think we have the ability to make better decisions in the future. So I just want to thank you for taking time out of your busy Tuesday evening to be with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you very much for your attendance tonight, and I agree with everything that Commissioner Farrar said. Now, if you want to get your name in the newspaper, Tim Vandernack from the Standard is right here in front taking notes, and he'll be printing on this, so he's the guy to contact. With that, I've got a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, Gaze. Thank you, Ray.
Good. Long night.
Yeah, I knew it would be.
Yeah.
Commissioner Jenkins, it is always an honor and a pleasure.